I gave you Powers your number. Like text it.
Yeah, I would have last night, but I was here, so.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
First time I switched gates on like 4 or 5 years. So
I didn't have any on last year, so it's to be first time.
Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Mayor.
Morning, morning. Well, so you got to see my world live yesterday.
I did, yeah.
Yes.
You're gonna have to have a lock on that door.
Oh, well, and normally I would have just dropped everything, but Andy's mom had passed away while we were up at AUMA.
Oh, no.
And so I had phoned him as soon as I found out about it, explained to him that I was unable to do anything, but I did tell him that if there was anything I could do from a distance, so
Yeah.
he come down to visit with me to inform me he appreciated the offer and understood, so, yeah.
I'm sorry.
I don't have.
Who else needs an internet?
Mine is actually printing ear tags.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Oh, thank you.
If you want internet, we can use that for 1 or 2 devices. And it should work, it will work in our facilities. And it's good for. We'll have to get you another. It says till 2026. 1.5 years.
4 years.
That's 4 years.
Okay. Good thing I'm in the corner today.
So either that's wrong or your
No, I.
or your math is bad today, Lori.
I set these up a long time ago.
Are we ready, sir?
Whenever
We're
you're
waiting for
ready,
me.
Mr. Mayor.
All right, yeah. Call it to order at 8:32. Which are we doing first, Kim?
The special council meeting.
Special council meeting? Okay. Well, that's at 9:30. We're supposed to call it to order.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry. Information meeting. My
Okay,
fault.
sorry. Adoption of the agenda, motion please. Yeah, there you go. Ross or Mr. Camp, Council Campion. Ross works. Okay. Seconder,
No second.
no seconder.
Just all in favor though.
All in favor? Carried. We have a delegation from Mr. Harvest Sky today.
Morning.
Morning.
Go ahead, take it away.
Go ahead, buddy.
Right on. Well, thanks to everybody and congratulations to the new counselors and the returning counselors from last term. Yeah, and thanks for letting me come today and present about economic development in the region. So I'm just going to dive right in. Probably going to skim through a lot. I'm sure lots of you have heard some of this stuff already, but since there's a kind of a mix of new counselors and old counselors, I thought I'd kind of start with a little bit of history and stuff. Feel free to stop me at any time, ask questions, whatever. I'm just going to keep going until somebody interrupts. So yeah, economic development, what's happening in the Harvest Sky region. So just a really brief history, like I said, originally we were Cactus Corridor Economic Development Corporation, founded back in late 2012. We are a Part 9 company, which means we're incorporated, we can do business, but we're basically nonprofit. We have 4 shareholders, the Hanna Learning Center, the Town of Hanna, Special Areas, and the Village of Youngstown. On my board of directors, we have 7. The Learning Center has 1 person, representative. That's Gray Vino at the moment. And each of the other shareholders has 2 because they're all funding their they give us money. So as of since the last election, now we have from Special Areas, Mark Blair and Justin Griffith. Hanna, of course, we have Councillor Bowden and Councillor Warwick. And Youngstown, we have Robert Blagan and Debbie Laughlin returning. So a good mix of people that have been there for a while and some new faces. So looking forward to it. So fast forwarding just a little bit in, of course, around 2015, we know that the provincial government put in steps to shutter the coal mine and change or do something with the power plant in the area. So a climate change task force was put together. I know CEO Neil and amongst others from the region were on this task force. Did a lot of work. I'm going to skim through. They did a lot of excellent work. I'm going to skim through years of stuff here. A couple of notable things. They had Urban Systems, a consultant, come in and do a impact study in 2016. Shortly after that, they continued on with an asset and opportunity study in 2017. At that time, Cactus Corridor at the time was very involved with the climate change task force. Tricia Sewell, our economic development officer at that time, was very involved. They started a community action team process. You probably might have heard the CAT, referred to as a CAT process. Basically went out to the larger region and community to generate ideas and involvement, try and get more than just the task force, more than just, administration on board with what's going on. As you probably know, it takes much more than just, 7 councillors or administration to move things forward and do things. So, it's a whole community effort. So that CAP process brought people, gave them a chance to be heard, bring any kind of idea off the shelf and say, here's an idea I think that we can work on to help save our region from the effects of the coal plant closure. So that process was ongoing. And then in I guess it was late 2019, they contracted Doug Griffith's company, the 13 Ways Group, and they produced a playbook of ideas. So with the CAP process with ideas from the community, the 13 Ways playbook, the opportunity study, there was a whole pile of ideas being generated in the region. And then it was time, of course, for some action or something to come out of all these ideas. So at that time, that's roughly when I joined, was in January of 2020. And at that time, the Western Economic Diversification federal government department, they're now called Prairies Can, they've rebranded themselves, basically came across through CCTI, is Canada Coal Transition Initiative funding. So they had basically a pile of money available, and between the climate change task force and the regional partners said, here's some money. What are your ideas? How can we generate economic development and sustainability for the region? So if anybody have any questions, I blew through like 5 years worth of stuff there in one slide.
You did well.
So on January 17th, 2020, representatives met from the region. We had Youngstown, Hanna, special areas. Myself was there, Learning Center, and a few people met. It was basically my first day on the job, and we got together as a group, and Doug Griffiths was there to facilitate the meeting and said, okay, like we've got this money now, we have all these different ideas generated. What are we going to do to try and come up with ideas to move things forward? So we decided at that time, some of the money obviously has been used to support the business hub, me having an office there, that kind of thing. But generally, we started on 14 projects. So economic development readiness, 4 projects under that. So we've done a Chokepoint Analysis, a water power logistics assessment. I'm going to skim through these, but we'll get back to them later. So don't worry if I'm going fast through some of these. A labor force assessment and a land assessment. We did a couple of irrigation studies, one specifically on the Carrollside deadfish area, and then more of a broad special areas irrigation study. Regional marketing strategy. We've done 3 that are kind of specific to the town of Hanna: a community development, a healthy living strategy, and a recreational living strategy. 2 specifically for Youngstown, a kind of a solar project and also a community development project. And then an agricultural center project and educational resource project. Like I said, I'll elaborate on each of those in a little bit here. So yeah, basically I hit the ground running in January there with these 14 projects. We got a bunch of consultants going and have been moving forward ever since. I'm going to start with the regional marketing strategy because that's kind of obvious to where we're at now. So we got a marketing consultant, and just so you're aware, All these projects, all the consultants, all the tenders went out on the Alberta Purchasing Connect website. They were on our website, they were on Facebook. So all the, any consultants we used, there was a broad base we had for the, I think the 14 different projects. I had something like 50 or 60 submissions, varied between the different projects. So there was a wide, from all across the country, you know, some in Alberta, some close to our region. I had consultants from Toronto, you're putting in bids to do the project. So anyway, so the marketing strategy, we're working with a company out of Edmonton right now called Insight. They've been very good to work with. And they started, and another thing about all these projects, there's been a lot of community consultation. So counselors at the time were probably it. I know administration, especially in Hanna, has done a lot of work with them. Special areas, Youngstown, the community at large, Prairie Land, School Division. There's been a lot of consultation, a lot of feedback on all the different projects. So anyway, the regional marketing strategy, Insight, they went out, did a lot of work, consultation process with a number of stakeholders, and through all that came back to at the time, the Cactus Corridor Board and said, okay, you're kind of at a crossroads on marketing the region. The three municipal partners, Special Areas and in Youngstown, all have their websites, their social media in various degrees. I know Hanna, the town, and Lori had gone through a rebranding process just prior to this with the new logo and updated website over the last couple of years. But Youngstown didn't have a website. They didn't really have a logo per se. Special Areas website is old. So we had three different regional partners, all at kind of different levels. And certainly Youngstown has no social media, whereas the town has, you know, Facebook and their social media. So the consultant kind of came back and said, well, you're trying to promote the region, but you've got three partners all kind of doing different things. And really, you know, in Hanna especially, like we do a good job for the most part, depending on who you ask out in the public, of getting information out there, right? There's lots of information going out, whether people digest it or not, it's up to them. But we're really trying to market to people outside the region if we want to be sustainable. If you want people in business to move here, we have to tell people in Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver what we have. So the consultant basically came back and said, well, you can continue trying to promote three different entities, but who knows what Special Areas is and where the village of Youngstown is. So they came back and said, well, why don't we try and do a regional branding? And then all the partners can kind of feed and funnel under this. So again, through a long process, that's where they came up with the Harvest Sky region. And it's kind of like if you think about Big Sky, you think about Montana, right? Well, if you say Special Areas, right, what do you think of? You know, unless you live here, you really don't know what Special Areas is. So the Harvest Sky region was come up. It's basically, you know, a way to market our region to people outside to say, where's Harvest Sky? What is Harvest Sky? And every time somebody hopefully searches on Google something Harvest Sky, something in our region will pop up. I know now we have a pharmacy that's named themselves Harvest Sky, which I think is fantastic, right? Now every time somebody thinks of the pharmacy, they're going to think Harvest Sky, they're going to think our region. So you just start to build off each other, okay? So then the marketing company started to look at partners, said, how do we get everybody up to the same level? So Cactus Corridor, you know, we've rebranded Harvest Sky Economic Development Corporation. Where we've got the new name, we've got new logos, branding, we have a brand new website, which I'll show you. Now we're on different social media platforms. The Village of Youngstown, obviously we're not changing the name on some of these, but they've got a new logo, they've got branding, they've got a website, which I'll quickly show you. Town of Hanna, like I said, you guys have gone through a long process with your new logos and everything. You had a good website. They're doing just a little tweaks just to help clean a few things up, help Lori with a few things, but didn't need to do a lot for the town, obviously. And Special Areas, you'll be seeing soon, they're getting a brand new website. Learning Center, they're looking at a name change, possibly. They're looking at logos, branding. I'm not sure what they'll do, if they'll do something on their website. And then we're also starting to move this down to other entities that we're working with. So I've been working with the golf course, and you know what they're going to do there is going to obviously be up to the membership and the board of the golf course, but they're talking about looking at again the full picture. So you know they've got a pretty good website with a lot of information. Does it need to be tweak just to have a sales focus. How do we bring them in? So it's more than just Harvest Sky Economic Development. It's more than just our municipal partners. It can be everybody in the region can benefit from this.
Mark, is this the time you might want to just mention, even with the Hanna logo, how we were using a different tagline at different times?
Yeah, and Lori might be able to, if there's direct questions, but so part of the regional play is being a part of, like I said, a bigger thing. So, you can see, actually, I'll just jump to the next one here, you can see it better. So if you look at Youngstown, what they kind of had their signs, and now that's their new logo. I think it's one of the better ones that they've come up with, actually, like this, out of all the logos we've been working on. So, but as you can see on the bottom, or hopefully see it, Village of Youngstown, part of the Harvest Sky region. So I know in Hanna, we have had Live the Lifestyle. It's still there. That we're not trying to get rid of. I know there was, I think, a little confusion out in the public when some of this went out there, is we're trying to get rid of Live the Lifestyle. That's not the intention. Live the Lifestyle is still kind of Hanna specific, can certainly be used on internal stuff, town stuff, wherever it's necessary. Part of the Harvest Sky region is lots of times using that for the external branding, external marketing, and some of the stuff we're talking about that we will signage and different things. If people are driving into the region, are we going to have this on signs at the edge of special areas or at the town or Youngstown? So that again, there's that sense of that we're part of something bigger. But just to let you know, as Kim mentioned, that Live the Lifestyle is still very much there. I don't know, did I capture that, Lori?
Yeah, I think so. I think the brand document is in the councilor handbook that was provided, and it's got a good outline.
And it was even with the previous council, was a discussion topic. A lot of the previous council was active in determining Live the Lifestyle as their tagline. So there was some, loyalty to that and promotion to that. And, council was back and forth in terms of the brand guidelines and in terms of tweaking it and having part of Harvest Sky become part of our marketing materials that go out. So we're going to make the best effort we can to try and retain Live the Lifestyle as much as we can as well, and try and honor both positions. But it's a challenge. But it was, we were trying to be part of the region, yet I know there was, council had approved that logo and definitely had some loyalty to Live the Lifestyle. So.
And sometimes I think we get stuck in a rut where we think things have to be one way or they have to be another. And I'm not just talking about logos and taglines, like it's just life, as we seem to be very black or white, lately is you can have different ideas, you can have different things, and you can have smaller pieces be part of a bigger entity, but still retain some of that local flavor, right? So I don't see why two taglines can't coexist and still work. So
I think that as far as my concern was that, the time and money that was spent for working on the logo, Live the Lifestyle and stuff, it was just kind of unfortunate that it didn't happen sooner, so that it could have, worked a little bit different and may not have, spent that money on doing that work and all the changes that have come out of it.
So we have to remember though, Councilor, that the rebrand was bigger than Live the Lifestyle tagline. So it was the logo. We didn't change. There were some really minor tweaks to the logo, but the logo that the previous council adopted with the H still remains. The
Yeah,
website, the
but
colors.
As far
it
as
was
the
just the
tagline,
The tagline, is being used a little bit differently than it was originally.
And the tagline that you're referring to is the one that goes direct, or is a part of the image that sits directly underneath.
Right.
Yeah. Live the Lifestyle is still part imagery that we do for
the town.
we're still building and growing that and learning ourselves, but yeah, our staff are still trying to incorporate that in the imagery. It's just a piece that's separate from the physical logo as one unit.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad thing, actually. The more I'm thinking about it, using it, the more I'm liking it, and the more attention it will bring use this way.
Yeah, I just backed up. You can kind of see the graphic. I know it's a little small, but you know, the Harvest Sky region there is kind of your overall brand. And then you've got economic development, the town, the village, special areas, the learning centers, pieces underneath, and that's kind of how it fits. And like I said, the couple of rebranding, so Cactus Quarter became Harvest Sky. You can see the new village of Youngstown. It's just, they're so nice and clean, right? Like Insight has done such a great job with the logos and stuff. They're clean, they're bold. And I didn't get into it in this presentation. You know, it was part of the work that they did. You know, there's pages, there's like in the village of Youngstown, that the green and the orange there's like 12 different elements that they name. So I mean, you've got a fish tails, the orange, you've got the wheat fields, you've got there's the Y for Youngstown. And like there's in all their work that they do, there's like a dozen different things going on in the logo, which are really cool to sit down and know it. So
Looks like a tulip.
yeah, there's that too. I think that was one of the things. So anyway, yeah, like I said, it's the regional marketing, and now we're starting to move away from the rebranding and that work on that, and now we're moving into the actual advertising phase. So hopefully these work up here. So we've got, like I said, new websites. And we've had, as part of this
The
Insight,
only challenge is I don't know why it didn't go on the screen.
oh, it didn't. Thanks.
Any IT direction
What's
as
in
to why?
presentation mode, I assume you'll have to.
Oh, right, go out of that.
That is so handy having that.
Other duties as required.
Many hats.
That's what that invoice was, other duties is required.
Where is stop slideshow? Help ID.
F11, F12, F5, trial 3.
Do I really want to start pressing F?
Escape. Shut down.
That's the one I would use wrong.
12, 11.
Right click.
Ooh, ooh, don't do that. Wow.
Like,
You got it, yeah.
800%.
We can't just.
Oh, well, you know,
Oh, there.
Oh,
Thank
she's-
you. You
Makes it
realize you're
look
gonna
so
have to get back up here.
The worst thing is, did you get that?
No, he's coming back up here.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. So yeah, our Harvest Sky website. And like I was mentioning, the great part is the pictures are all, we had a local person taking the pictures. So these are all local shots, local people. The video you'll see is local production again. So I mean, that's Carla and her yoga in the park, Jay Slamp and the pickleball players. So I'll get into the invest here, visit here, live here theme in a second, but you know, you can scroll down and see Harvest Sky region. We've got the video I'll show you in a minute. We've got pictures. It's really about people. Everything we're doing is trying to showcase the people and why you want to live and do business here in the region. Our partners, of course. And the bar, like we've got the meet the region, visit, doing business here, Harvest Sky economic development. I'm not gonna, you guys can take a look at the website if you want.
Where else do you display this? Like this are the information with the Harvest Sky? Like what other websites do we access to put this rebranding on? Or was it just displayed on our website and then people have to search us out or Harvest Sky region in order to access it? Or is it already sent out to other regions as a means of showing what we have here?
Yeah, so that'll be, I think, if I'm understanding your question, we'll be advertising, so that would use the website to blast out to attract people in. And then the partners will have links on their website to access it and stuff. Is that kind of what you mean?
Sort of,
You're
like,
ahead of us, I think, Andy. We're just kind of getting to that right
okay.
Yeah, like the more the advertising it's coming. So on the social media, for example, we're using the links to blast it out to attract people to come to the website. So I'll show you a couple other instances here. So that was Harvest Sky. Yeah. Youngstown never had a website, so now they've got a.
That's my inability to control that archaic projector hanging from. the ceiling
it's
that's
size.
cutting- Yeah, it's
It's
not the
okay.
website or Mark's computer, it's.
Yeah, again, local
Old tech
Youngstown
needs to be
pictures.
checked.
Where, is this Youngstown?
This is Youngstown, yeah.
Okay.
So they've got their cafe, these are
Yes.
Youngstown people. Youngstown, lots of the pictures you'll see also include people that live near Youngstown, lots of the farm and kind of stuff, so, but they, like, we consider, the great part, and you probably got this at AUMA when you were there, is there's communities and regions that do nothing but fight. Fort McMurray, Wood Buffalo, Red Deer County. You know, when I look at what we're doing and whenever we talk to special areas in Youngstown, we consider ourselves a group. We're individual, but we're part of a bigger group. So when you're talking to Youngstown, for example, and they say, oh, we need pictures of residents, well, they consider the people that live on the farm 2 miles away still part of Youngstown, right? So yeah, their website, Village Youngstown, you can see the different uses of the logo, people in it, and just all the information. I'm not gonna, and then again, part of the Harvest Sky region on the website. Right. Part of it is also then we have a splash page. So this, I think, is a little bit of what Angie's talking about, sort of Councilor Warwick. So a splash page is then something that it's part of our website, but it's really almost in front of the website. So it comes up and we can use this specific link in our advertising. So that's where we start to highlight why you want to come here. So sorry, it is cut off a bit, but you know, high-speed internet, great schools, you know, healthcare options, housing prices, tourism, recreation, easy access to big cities, right? So then we use this in our advertising as that hook, right? So you put this out on social media, somebody in Calgary looks at it and goes, oh, why would I want to, what's Harvest Sky? The first thing they see is all the reasons they should move here, do business here, or come here. And then that entices them to go more in depth into our website. So is that kind of what you're, a little bit more?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
When you just scroll over these, you get stories. Is there, and you can see on here, we have, you know, we have social media, so we have Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and you can see they're all Harvest Sky, they're branded the same. Lori, we're gonna have sound if I,
Well, we have a cord that is this long and all the controls are at this end of the table. So if you can bring your computer, oh, that was your toe. I'm gonna go right,
My heel.
oh,
or can you bring it up on a different computer, if you just go to there, or?
wait, just unplug it, unplug everything. Oh, no, not that one.
Not that.
That was bad.
I'm not in IT, I'm in economic
And
development.
then there's the power, yeah, and then that's long.
Sorry.
Okay, I know, this is less than ideal.
It'll get the point across. Go ahead.
Taking it down to the expert brass.
Yeah. Yeah, put on there that there's fish in Elmer Dam too. They really promoted
Yeah,
us.
let me just- That's gonna blast us out of the room, I think.
And the first time I saw this video, I was blown away at how professional it looks. I'm sure a few of you
Click on.
give it a shot.
It's such amazing
Magically.
subjects.
The guy doing the fishing is
He gets a residual, he
just.
gets a residual every time it's played.
Yeah, that's right.
So I've got my essay written. And I will-
You always worry about what
So
Grammarly's
now I'm
gonna
gonna show you
come
how
up.
I use Grammarly to edit.
Yeah.
It's gonna cut part of it off, but I think
A prairie lifestyle that lets you slow down and breathe. Wide open spaces where you can inhale the scent of freshly cut hay. Dotted with beautiful lakes. Surrounded by towering poplars. Here, the vast sky signals endless possibilities. In a place where you reap your unique harvest, while living a life you love. Welcome to the Harvest Sky region. With the simplicity of a prairie lifestyle, it combines with easy access to local urban conveniences and strong connectivity to nearby communities. With ample land and affordable living, there are limitless opportunities to transform your dreams into reality. While still leaving plenty of time to relax with friends and family, or explore the great outdoors. This is a community waiting for people excited to build a family. Your retirement lifestyle, filled with camping, fishing, or hiking. Your neighbors are warm and welcoming, the kind of people who know your name and look out for each other, while offering excellent healthcare, education, and recreational amenities. The Harvest Sky region has everything urban life delivers, but with the freedom you only experience when all you hear is the wheat field rustling in the breeze.
Every time I watch it,
It's
it's
really
fantastic.
Very good.
Other than the towering populars, which is incorrect grammar, I caught that right away the first time I ever listened to it.
Well,
'Cause
the
they're
original
not
one was gonna
towering
be,
poplars.
well, it was
There's several
towering
different-
pine trees. The first time I'm like, we don't have a lot of pine trees, maybe we should change that.
There
Hey,
is.
that's a landmark for my house. I have the two biggest pine trees in all of Hanna.
They're populars, it's true, they're just not towering populars.
But they're towering in their size.
I know, I understood the grammar, yeah, but. It was very well done.
So yeah, that's the regional branding, that's the marketing, and like I said, right now, we're working on the execution side. We've got 2 execution plans, we're working on a resident attraction plan that will use all of these elements and pieces to blast out to the larger world. And that's gonna coincide with the tourism execution plan, again, using all these pieces. Thanks, Lori.
Yeah.
Yeah, to try and start attracting people. And it's funny, without even getting to this part, at the hub in the last year, we've had people, and you probably know this, people moving to Hanna from all over the country, like Vancouver Island, Calgary, obviously, Toronto, Montreal. Like, people are finding our region without us even doing any of this. So obviously the hope is once we really start to blast this out is when people will really start to notice that.
Yeah, being the Pure Later FedEx Depot, it's pretty interesting because you get lots of different phone numbers and you ask them, like, okay, you're from Chilliwack, BC, what are you doing in Hanna?
So what's the answer, Dan?
The one from Chilliwack was basically, he's a young guy that builds mandolins and sold his house at Chilliwack for $800,000 and found a house in Hanna. I believe he said 150,000, and he builds mandolins. And like he said, I can build mandolins anywhere. He said, I just ship them. And so that was the one from there. The young couple out of, well, they did a little bit of a hop, skip, and a jump. They started out in Vancouver and relocated to Calgary and then relocated to Hanna all in a matter of about 3-4 years. And they've got a fairly young family. They've got 2 younger ones and a teenager. And they just didn't like the hustle and bustle of where they were at. And they came out. I had a retired, well, not retired, forcefully retired bus driver, tour bus driver. And he had a condo in Calgary and he had a stroke and lost his bus driving license and of course couldn't afford to maintain a condo in Calgary. So he Googled houses for under 150,000 and he said basically everything east of Highway 2 pops up. And he came to Hanna, he bought a house for about $100,000 and he's fixing it up. And that's his new income dream, is to buy houses, fix them up and roll them, sort of thing. So the young family out of Toronto, the same thing, got tired of the hustle and bustle of the big city. I don't know how they found Hanna. I never did find that out. But basically everyone we've talked, I shouldn't say everyone, pretty much everyone that comes in, I mean, I'm kind of a nosy person, I like to talk, so you ask them how they found Hanna or why they came to Hanna, and it's well, living a lifestyle, for lack of a better, like, I mean, they're happy out here, and I'm as guilty as anybody. I got sentenced to come down here 22 years ago, and it took me 2 years to figure out that this is where I really wanted to be in it. I'm not ashamed to admit that I wouldn't raise a family anywhere else other than here. Like, I mean, I grew up in a small community, no point, it always will be home, but this is home now. But it's really cool to see the influx of people from all over the place. Like, it's not just, you know, Calgary or you know, bigger centers. It's people coming to retire for the most part. We've had some younger families moving in originally. That was my fear with all these older people coming to town, is we're becoming a retirement home because of our affordability. But the last 2 or 3 people I've dealt with are all families moving in, so it's good.
No, I'm just curious because we notice it here. I notice you guys probably notice it a lot. You know, if you talk to our realtors, they'll say that they've never sold as many properties in the last year or 2 than they ever have. Granted, prices still aren't great if you're the seller, but lots of, and from all over,
Yeah.
like Ontario, BC, Yukon, they've been from all over the place. And, you know, I thought, just my understanding, I thought it maybe had slowed down a little bit because it didn't see as many sold signs, but I know, and I haven't been out because I've been in Edmonton last week and been tied up in the office. But I noticed I was out for a second yesterday and noticed 3 or 4 more sold signs on properties, and an interesting one, dying to find out, is the one on Main Street.
Yeah.
So where the quilt shop was. I don't know anything about who's bought it, what, and maybe Mark does and he can't say anything, and that's fine. But I was
Yeah, I found
pleased.
out yesterday.
Every time I see, you know, a sold sign, that's a positive indication to me, so.
No, and you guys are absolutely right. That's all. So before, like, one of the cat things from before we had worked on is called Retired Hanna. I know people have said, like, retirees. You get enough of them, they need nurses, they bring families. But with COVID, what really sped up the process, I think, is now the work from home thing with the internet and everything. It's like, well, not only retirees, but young families and stuff. Why not move here and live here? And we get people shopping at the hub. We had one lady come in quite a few months ago. Look, you know, she was shopping Hanna, Okotoks, Vulcan, or like she was looking at 3 or 4 different communities. And so she was just out, which one do I want to move to, right? So again, that's how do you find Hanna? They're just Googling and happening to stumble across. The whole idea behind this is now that we're going to be out in front of their face and it won't be as random, hopefully.
Well, and it's not just Hanna.
Yeah.
It's the whole gamut of what Hanna is, so.
Yeah.
Well, this reminds me of Newfoundland and Labrador. They started a campaign like this about 4 years ago. And they have commercials on TV, exactly like that video. And it worked. People, but how they find Hanna, I know I've done it. I go to realtor.ca and I put the scale to 50,000 and I just do search of the whole country, and zoop, they all show up here because there aren't very many places left in the country that have housing as low as ours.
Yeah.
That's a livable area. I mean, tuck to yup tuck, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
Mark,
agree.
how do you What do you define as the boundaries of Harvest Sky? Like I seen in your pictures, you had a circle with the special areas highlighted. Like
So-
in that area, what are your boundaries of the region?
Me,
Or do you have one?
yeah, Harvest Sky, so right now, and especially if you just look at economic development, it's special areas 2. And then Youngstown, I know, is just outside of that, but because they're so far away from the Oyen where they had the other economic development, they kind of joined Cactus Corridor originally. So we're special areas 2, obviously with Hanna, and then we do Youngstown as well. So Harvest Sky region, just because of the way that the coal transition money and the marketing and the economic development is, it's basically special areas 2. But I mean, certainly if somebody comes in and says, oh, like we're looking at something in Serial or Oyen, I'm not gonna tell, well, that's not Harvest Sky, like don't, we'll certainly pass them off to, I know Wanda Dyke does economic development out that way and that kind of stuff. So again, it's still more collaboration, but there's still some differentiation just because special areas is so big and there's so kind of the history of special areas. There was SAMDA, like Special Areas and Municipal District of Acadia, they had economic development. And we had Cactus Corridor, and then Wanda Dyke was Special Areas Economic Development up in Consort area. So just, the kind of the history of the 3 different entities are different, but again, it's all special areas. So I don't know,
There is potentially, I know that was part of the discussion when we were kicking this off, is how we incorporate all of special areas, so 3 and 4, but they still have their own identity and they still have their own group. So it's something that may come through osmosis as we work together and more cooperation, that maybe down the road, the entire special areas may become Harvest Sky. But we're not there yet, and it might work towards that, but that's still a little ways off, so.
yeah, and you probably heard over the years, Return to Rural was kind of a project that was kind of born out of SAMDA and special areas, the eastern part. But I mean, just because Cactus Corridor wasn't part of Return to Rural still advertised all of special areas, right? So same kind of thing, like we're advertising the region, but we're kind of specific to this half. Return to Rural was kind of that half, but advertise the region, right?
Yeah, my only thing is, I guess from a standpoint of the town, I like the idea of the region, but I don't know, you want to get too big because then all of a sudden you lose what your focal point to me, is this area. I have no problem with cross-border secret sharing and so on and so forth, but if you get too big, you lose your effectiveness, in my opinion. I mean, it's great to take on more, but then all of a sudden you're losing your focal point a little bit.
Yeah, no, there's always a fine line.
Yeah.
And that's why it hasn't gone any
No,
further, so-
yeah,
Well, and doesn't there's other communities or organizations out there like PEP and others that are maybe doing other things that kind of incorporate those as well, that to a certain
bit, yeah.
extent, a little bit.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Okay, Mark, we got 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. So anyway, so that was kind of the regional take. That was the marketing part. Drill down a bit more. So in just economic development, obviously Harvest Sky, we rebranded. So, our new purpose, creating endless possibilities in the Harvest Sky region. There's our vision there. So we really focus now on investors, visitors, and residents. So, business, tourism, and attracting people here. Do that with our 3 objectives, basically our priorities: economic development, readiness, economic development, and community development. So economic development readiness. So going back to those projects that I was talking about that we started with the funding from the federal government. So the Chokepoint Analysis and lots of these projects we started, like I said, last year. We're starting to wrap up lots of them right now. So you guys are going to start to get hit with the end of a lot of projects, and I know that's going to be difficult as new counselors coming in to say, well, where did all this come from, right? Well, it's a year and a half, 2-year process to get to where we are today. Unfortunately, for some of them, it's going to look brand new to you guys. So we'll try and help you along. But anyway, Chokepoint analysis, so we looked at the development process with Adrian, for example, and Palliser Municipal Services, so we're doing some stuff to reduce red tape there. Water power logistics assessment, I'm not gonna click on this link and mess this all up again. But, you know, if you go on our Harvest Sky website, there's a link there to a logistics map. It's got, people can go on there and see all the water lines, sewer lines, internet towers, all that kind of stuff. So if a business is actually looking to relocate here or set up some kind of site, they can go on there and get information on, you know, maybe land placement, where they want to go. Labor force assessment, just like it sounds, we're getting labor force statistics, land availability. So we're working with the real estate agents and a consultant to get links to available land, buildings, real estate to help promote that. The previous council passed an incentive program for development in the town. Youngstown did the very same development incentive program. I'll let administration, they can fill you in on that kind of stuff. Attracting investors, visitors, and residents, investors in new business. So obviously economic development, when you think that, you think business, which is definitely part of my job. But lots of people, when they think economic development, the first question is, well, how many businesses have you brought to town this last month? Well, economic development doesn't really work like that. We're competing with every little town in North America. So for us to get the next factory, the next Amazon, the next whatever is very, very difficult. So really what my job is setting the table and being there when business comes knocking. So for example, there's a lot of wind power projects coming into special areas. So I helped with TransAlta Garden Plain Wind. You know, they ask for where can they get gravel, where can they get garbage disposal, where can they get all those support services. And then I also did up a thing. I went to lots of the local business owners and said they're looking for an operations and maintenance shop who has space they want to rent out. Right. Prairie Land, working with them on their School of Innovations projects, their greenhouses in Youngstown and Berry Creek, just provided a little service to them. So 2 of the projects were the irrigation projects. Quickly touch on those. So our initial work with those, now you've probably heard some of the announcements. Special Areas is looking at moving ahead with a larger irrigation partnership with the province of Alberta and the Canadian Investment Bank. Yeah, thanks, Kim. So the 2 projects we started have laid the groundwork for the larger Special Areas irrigation work that they're doing. And now we're starting to talk in Special Areas about hydrogen production. So that hydrogen seems to be the next buzzword out there. So we're going to look at see what we can do there. Visitors, tourism. We, at the end of December here, we may lose our tourism coordinator in the office, but she's been working with insight on tourism options. Tourism, again, it's not just throwing out an ad saying, hey, we have a museum or we have this. We're actually working on day trip planning for golf course, because the golf course is there as far as advertising, right? It is a advertisable, usable commodity that we can attract people to town. There's things like the Roundhouse, which I think will be in the future a really great thing, but it's just not quite to the level of being able to use it today, right, for things. So yeah, working on those kind of things to attract tourism to town. Residents, as you saw, the resident attraction program, we're going to start launching that. And then we talked about active retirees and the work from home markets we're going to target. Other projects. The Ag Center, really exciting stuff going to come there. We're going to have our presentation to the Harvest Sky Economic Development Board here in, I think, next week, 2 weeks, maybe.
November 14th. Is that?
No, that'll be our board meeting in December. I think
For
it's
December.
Yeah. Anyway, the Ag Center, so we're looking at a livestock hub with vet services, a riding arena, research and food production facilities, a number of other components. So again, a project we've been working over a year on. The board's going to hear about the final product within a week here. Educational Resources Center, so talking again with stakeholders, Prairie Land post-secondary institutions looking at a potential dormitory for international students and connections with post-secondary. We've had some really preliminary but really good chats with a post-secondary institution that is looking at the work we're doing. So again, we're setting the table for future good economic development.
Just out of curiosity, Mark,
Yeah.
what kind of facility would you use for a dormitory now? I feel like the facilities that we had on the, available to us, you know, a few years ago are no longer available. So what, off the top of your head, is there a facility that is available? That can be outsourced as a dormitory here in Hanna?
Probably new construction, if it works. So,
Yeah, got
but-
that base just north of the seniors lodge. that is
Yeah,
all set
there's-
for-
one thing we definitely have in the area is lots of land.
Okay, I just wondered if we had a facility in town. Okay.
No,
Okay.
once you get an update on the project, you'll
Okay.
kind of see. Without going into too much, just because some of it's still confidential. But yeah, the ag project, the educational project, and some of the other. And again, I'm telling you this in 2 minutes, and it's been a year-long process or more. But it's really exciting where it's coming from. It's going to be the next step of how now do we take it from a paper project to reality. But the work that the consultants have been doing, making connections to other parts of the province, other stakeholders, has really generated a lot of buzz. And I think we're starting to attract some really, really cool ideas. It's just going to be taking it to the next level, right? Youngstown, we're doing, like I said, a couple of community projects there. We'll go into those. And then Hanna, yeah, so we're doing some definite Hanna projects. As you know, we're doing a development demolition project, so we've knocked down, or in the process of knocking down 5 buildings. We'll get into the background on that. You've heard about some of that. To me, that's economic development, because now we have nice, clean, empty lots that we can now sell to a new business. Healthy living strategy is going to look at pathways, pickleball options, upgrades to other facilities. We have great facilities in Hanna, so there wasn't necessarily a lot of work, and I know administration does a good job of keeping our facilities up to date. But just, as part of this process, if we have a report in hand, lots of times that gives us the ability to go to other funding options and other grants and say, well, our community center needs $50,000 for a whatever kitchen. Here's a report that says we need that. So it helps. Recreational living strategy, looking at permanent RV sites, upgraded camping options, Fox Lake Park, maybe Prairie Oasis. And then community development plan. And I think you'll hear a lot more about this coming up. Entrance and wayfinding signage, so tying in economic development with marketing, attracting people to the community. Main Street redevelopment is going to be a huge project. And then community development plans, including some seniors walking paths, cart routes, and rest zones. And I know I'm working closely with Kim on some exciting grant opportunities there that we're going after. But again, all the work we've been doing, all these projects and plans are laying the groundwork for us to now go to the next step and say, well, we need $2 million for the infrastructure on Main Street, because it's part of this bigger plan. And then other departments like the federal government will look at that and say, okay, like it's not just us giving you money for sewers, it's fixing up the community. It becomes economic development because now you're attracting people to your region. So.
So we don't have a ton of time. I just wanted to touch base a little bit on the community development project. Obviously, Councilors Bowden and Olson and Campion have heard a fair bit about that, working with 818. Some of you may have heard bits and pieces. It's been in the paper. They did some engagement farmers markets. They had a spot in by the old post office, trying to get feedback from residents on Main Street development. So we do have a conceptual plan, conceptual design for redevelopment of the downtown.
That does not include parallel parking.
Does not include parallel parking. But at the end of the day, and there is some money with, I'm having a hard time getting my head wrapped around Prairie's CAN versus Western Economic Diversification. But they do have a pot of money, and there is money allocated for special areas 2 region from this coal transition dollars for infrastructure upgrades. So we've been talking to them based on the previous council in terms of investing those dollars in our downtown. So we're working with them in that regard as we move forward. And I know after elections, things are tight and things are tough and you're in Christmas, but we are planning to have 818 come back. And I know it might be a review for the previous council, but to update the new council on what that concept plan was, why it's designed the way it was, and that whole thing, to try and bring you back into speed as we move forward, forward with that. So it was a priority of the previous council to redevelop the downtown and bring people to our downtown. At the end of the day, to do that, you have to, we're not just gonna go above ground and pretty everything above ground when we know we've got 50, 60-year-old pipes in the ground underneath. So we're starting from the bottom and working our way up. So you will hear a lot more on that. It's probably gonna be one of the priorities of council as we move forward through your term. And the other thing, just Mark and I, you'll see Mark fairly regularly in here. We probably try and get him in here at least every quarter to update you with what's going on. Harvest Sky is our economic development. So council provides funding to Harvest Sky on an annual basis to provide economic development services for the town. So you will see Mark. Mark and I communicate regularly, but we want to try and keep council up to date with what's going on, because economic development is always the hot button item that you'll get as a councillor. How are you bringing people to town? How are you bringing businesses to town? What are you doing to get people here? So
It's tough to measure.
it's very difficult to measure.
I always equate it to advertising. So Coca-Cola spent millions of dollars on advertising. But how do they know that somebody goes to the grocery store and buys a bottle of Coke because they saw an ad on TV? You don't. Other than now with social media, you can follow people that click on an ad and then go to a website and buy something. But that's the first time in history that you can actually tell that, where you spent money on advertising and somebody bought
Something, yeah.
Yeah, so economic development's the same. You put money into it. And like I said before, you can ask me how many businesses I brought to town last month. Maybe a business came here because of something we did. Maybe they didn't. I can't tell you that. All I can do is try and set the table.
And at the end of the day, you hope to see an increase in assessment. That's no control.
To me, I've
Well, they're definitely.
boiled down economic development to keeping and bringing more money and resources in your town that leave. So, if population increases, if the assessment increases, if there's a business that comes here, that's economic development. Doesn't mean I did anything to get it here other than trying to do all the stuff to make sure that people know that that's great.
So the other thing that I want you guys to keep in the back of your mind as we move forward, it's going to, and I will fully admit it's going to be a challenge. We've been fortunate to receive money from Western Economic Diversification to establish the business hub. So they got 3-year funding to hire the staff that are there, to pay the town some rent, to basically operate. That is, believe it or not, that 3 years is up the end of 22. So we're planning to have start some initial discussions administratively early in 23 to see how we move forward, see how we keep the momentum that's been created by having the hub there. But it's, if you pull out WD funding, which is basically paying for 2 of the staff positions there, plus the building and some of the stuff, there's gonna be a need for a significant influx of financial capabilities from the community. So whether that's us, whether that's a combination of special areas, Youngstown, us, whether there's some outside entities, how we can move that forward. But we're starting the planning process early in 23 or 22 to be ready as we move forward. Because again, I don't think anybody wants to see the end of 22 come and we go, okay, hub's closed. We want to try and keep that momentum going, and I'll be frank, the feds have been the main funder behind that whole hub since it opened in 20, early in 20. So I just want to keep that in the back of your mind, that it is something that time comes fast and it's coming,
So it's
And,
at the end of 23, Kim? or
end of
22.
22.
So
Makes
March,
next
it's,
year.
it's
Unfortunately for them,
fiscal,
yeah,
government
Yeah.
fiscal, so March
it might stretch,
2023.
stretch a little bit into 23.
No, you just mentioned that you're gonna start
Yeah.
looking at it 23 and
Well,
I'm going,
we're at that time when we're in 21 and we're talking about 22.
yeah,
So I
no,
heard him, Danny, I think he meant to say 22.
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
thought too. That's why I was a
Yeah,
little bit
no, that's
confused.
good to clarify. So I just wanted to put that in your minds that, you know, we've got some momentum started there and it's been working well. Of course, dollars and resources are required, and how we're gonna deal with that, we're gonna start looking at that early in the new year, so we can have a plan, so how we can address it as we wanna move forward, you know, past 22.
Do you think there would be any grant funding that could go towards something like that? or not?
We'll look, but I don't know off the top of my head. Generally, it's more of a challenge to find grant funding for operational
Yeah.
dollars versus capital dollars, so.
Can I just make a comment? Because
Sandra,
oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to, because I am associated with the Hanna Roundhouse Society, there was mention about the Hanna Roundhouse that I did not approach Mark. Mark approached us because of federal contact that had talked to him about the Hanna Roundhouse. So I'm perfectly clear that I did not do anything to solicit. We love the idea and are working with Mark and our heritage advisor and that sort of thing. So I just want to make that perfectly clear that I did not approach.
But you absolutely could have, which would have been absolutely fine.
Well,
I
it
think.
depends who you talk to.
As a
And that there's more
representative of a
people-
not-for-profit, you are absolutely in your right to do that. And we actually just learned that last week.
Yeah. No, I know, but just to make it perfectly clear that we
Transparency
did
is
not
important.
transparency and stuff. And we're thrilled and we are definitely working towards that.
That's
And
wonderful.
yeah, so.
That'd be a great focal point.
But that is, thank you to contacts that Mark has made, and that money will go into our community.
That's wonderful.
So,
Oh, and bring people into town.
exactly.
My question to you would be, has the hub found any level of sustainability on its own? Because wasn't that part of the focus was to become
We-
self-sustaining?
Yeah, that's always the goal and that's always the.
I know, I've been
hope,
trying for
We
15
actually-
years, I'm still not self-sustaining, but I'm trying. Yeah, I
We
get it.
actually talked about this the other day, and it was really bad timing. What the model was to be self-sustaining with people renting office space and using services. And we opened up and COVID hit and
The next month.
the next month, yeah. So really the first year and a half, there was no way to generate any revenue at the business hub. So to answer your question bluntly, no, but I don't know what that looks like going forward. It's really, yeah.
Yeah, that would have
Part of
been
the
my
discussion.
comment. That would have been my comment to be upfront is there's probably no sustainability plan. It hasn't been created yet. And I
It
don't
can't
know,
until this.
and
is
I don't
over.
know if, you know, it's realistic. I don't want to rule it out, but I don't know if it's realistic, so.
thank you, Mark. Any other questions? I guess, sorry. Thanks, Mark.
Thank
You and I have
you.
had this
Thank you for your time.
discussion, we've had a discussion about economic development, measuring it and the challenges, so thank you.
So if you want to adjourn this meeting, Mr.
Adjourn.
Mayor,
So your report is done too, bud?
oh,
You have minus 3 minutes.
sorry, I'm not gonna, the only thing I was gonna add, demolition, just so you know, Mark did touch on it. 3 of the buildings are down. Central Meat is scheduled to come down Saturday morning, 10, 11-ish, Mark, is
It'll
that?
be tentative putting up the fence at 10 and then demolition starting between 11 and noon, depending on how things go. So the streets will be blocked off starting around 10. And I took a map to all the businesses that are on the intersection yesterday, just to inform them. Most of them are, they're not open.
We're not going to be,
Pretty happy to see it.
we're not,
They're all happy to see it, yeah.
we're not gonna be, you know, technically going out there advertising, promoting that time, because they don't wanna
Audience.
thousands of people watching. and the reason they don't want a bunch of people there, they can't stop anybody from watching, and they know that people will gather, and it's a small town. As soon as it starts to come down, people will be sharing it. But just because we are taking it down under different circumstances, we're not removing all of the asbestos and hazardous material in it. So it'll be wet as it's coming down, but it will also, they don't want to create a huge audience, but they're not going to stop people if they come. So that, and the other thing, and I think I mentioned it to some of you at AUMA. So we have had the challenge with Hanna Learning Center and the government's new policy on leasing space, which was going to have an impact to the Learning Center starting in April of 22 of about $55,000 a year. Previous councils lobbied, Learning Centers lobbied, special areas, Mark, a number of people have lobbied to the province to have them reconsider that, at least in our situation. Our MLA has been an advocate. When I was up in Edmonton at AUMA, I did have a chance to talk with Nate's assistant and very briefly with Nate, and he's indicated to me that they believe they have a workaround for it. So I thought that was good news. I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of. I think they have they believe they have a workaround for it, which will not be cost prohibitive to the Hanna Learning Center continue to operate and remain in their space. So I don't think there's anything written in stone yet or guaranteed, but I know Nate and James were quite optimistic and positive that they found a workaround that should work. So
I wonder what they plan on doing with the food bank if they're gonna start making the learning center charge books.
well, my understanding with the food bank, because I do volunteer there, and I haven't been there on a shift for probably a month, talking with their president, they hadn't had anything from infrastructure sent to them as of a month ago. And he was taking the position, I'm not going to pursue it. I'm not going to call them,
No kidding.
raise any ideas or issues. And if they come to us, he said, we can say, I haven't heard anything. I didn't know anything about this. But I'm hoping the workaround with the Learning Center will facilitate the food bank to continue to operate.
Well, hopefully, because if they don't, that'll probably kill a lot.
Oh, if there is a significant, and,
Because if
monthly
it comes
rent,
down to what do we have to support? Will we support the learning center or the food bank?
well,
I mean, the learning center, I think, is gonna get the preference.
and hopefully we don't come to that
Well,
point.
that's right.
But I just wanted, that's probably it, Mr. Mayor. I know it's not a ton of
Yeah.
report, but time's tight, so.
Okay,
Should have a motion.
motion to thank
Mr. Nakota.
Mr. Dakota.
Oh, yeah, good. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Councilor Bodine,
Thank you.
Secretary.
Thank you.
Anytime you guys have any questions.
I know where you live.
Yeah. All right. Stop by.
Same, Mark.
Motion for adjournment,
So you gotta call for all in favor on that motion.
all in favor of that motion,
You
thank
don't need
you.
a motion to adjourn, you just get.
Okay.
No, no.
Adjourned.
Okay, does anybody need a couple minute break?
There's water in the fridge and there should be coffee.
Washrooms are out around the corner here.
A water would be awesome.
One of those.
Your worship, Russ, you want
Might-
water?
might be a beer.
You know water?
Sure.
Sandra said yes.
Yes, please, thank you.
Looking you to see where the, what is is it still 40 grand? We get them?
In 2021, it was 42.5.
42.
And in 2022,
Yeah,
2022, the request, this is for Harvest Sky, and 2022, the request will be 45 from the town.
I couldn't see it here in the,
Yeah, it might not be in the highlights, Russ. That might have been something. we
yeah, I
had.
tried to find it there and I couldn't see it. So.
Thank you so much.
Oh, did you all on brass? There's one, there was.
Yeah, but.
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear you say something.
Thanks, Bob.
I'm getting old. I'm not-
Multitask.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, you're the only one getting old.
Yeah, the rest of us are old. Sorry, Ed.
I was gonna call.
I knew you were going. I see the head crack. Again.
I don't want to admit it. I'm living in denial.
Defiance, yeah.
No, denial.
Oh,
There's a
denial.
difference, denial.
Look of denial.
Just a reminder, your meeting is-
There's the other things I'm in defiance of, I'm in denial with age.
All right. Special meeting called to order 9:30-ish.
I'll make that. Do you have a motion? Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor. Adoption of the agenda,
Sure.
Council Olson. Discussion, none, all in favor? Carried. Business items.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, you're gonna be awful sick of listening to me today. I'm telling you right up front today. Oh, okay, definitely today, you're gonna be sick of hearing my voice. What my goal is today, Mr. Mayor, is to try and give you as much of a highlight as I can in the next 2 hours and 20 minutes. I want to respect your time, so we'll go till noon if everybody's okay there. And then basically you will leave this meeting with this material. And we meet again next Wednesday afternoon. I think in the afternoon at 1. So what we haven't gone through, I can go through there. But this allows you the next week to review the material, identify any questions you may have, any concerns you may have, any discussion on any of the items you'd like to have, and we'll do that at the next meeting. And then the goal at the end of the day is to, after our third meeting on the 8th of December, to have reached consensus from council on how they want to move forward with the adoption of the budget at the December 14th meeting. Following that, especially for the new councilors, this budget would operate, and I don't want to use the word interim, but it operates almost as an interim budget until we get to May. Prior to setting the tax rate in May, then we'll revisit the budget again. If there's been any changes in assessment, in costs, up or down, then we can deal with them prior to setting the tax rate in May. So this won't be the last time through this process that you'll see this, but that's kind of the process that we've used. We're starting right now. What you see before you is probably, it still is a work in progress. Rhonda and I have been working on it, and of course AUMA and timing, and then I was stuck in a meeting all day Monday in Youngstown with Regional Emergency Management. So there may be we still have some review in here, and there may be some errors that we've made as we're going through that we'll catch as we're moving through the process. But right now, as we start the process, we have almost a $500,000 problem in the 2022 budget, the way it sits right now.
Where is that?
Well, you'll see as we go through. Normally, we do have a problem when we come to this, and that's where council significantly gets involved to say, okay, we feel we can move forward with this project. We feel we want to delay this project. We feel we want to cancel this project. We feel we want to make these decisions. So we've got just under $500,000 problem. We have to have a balanced budget. We can't approve a deficit funded budget. We can approve a budget that's balanced, and we can draw from reserves or draw from surplus to balance it, but we can't pass a budget that says we're different than the province. We can't pass a budget like the province that says we're going this budget is a $10 billion deficit budget. We have to pass a balanced budget. So we'll move forward. I'm just going to start on the first page, Mr. Mayor, and work our way through each of the pages. So highlights in the budget to date, and these aren't all the highlights. These are just some that we pulled forward. So this budget does not, on the next page, does not reflect any increase in taxes. So we generated 2 million, and when I say taxes, I'm referring to the municipal tax portion, not the school requisition, the kitty requisition. This is the portion. Last year we generated $2,768,098. So this budget basically brings that same amount forward. How we get to it is yet to be determined in terms of based on what assessment is and how we have to change the tax rate, but that's the goal, is to bring the same amount in as we speak. Every 1% of tax increase will bring approximately $28,000 additional revenue. Concession and franchise revenue, it is a significant contributor to the town. So that is, we have franchise agreements with ATCO Electric to manage the electricity in the town of Hanna. So they own the poles, the infrastructure, everything. And no other company can do that. They have exclusive right to be that provider. On your bill, you will see, if you look closely, you will see a franchise fee. So in 2021, we increased the franchise fee charged on natural gas from, I think it was 15% to 17.5%. And 2023, our long-range plan would call for us to look at increasing the franchise fee on the power side from 7.5% to 10%. So there's maximums we can charge. On natural gas, the amount that we can charge as a franchise fee is 30%. On power, it's 20%. And if you look across the board where we're at in terms of the franchise fees we have, we're probably middle of the road. So that brings us in, and a lot of municipalities are looking at that as an alternative to property tax increases, because property tax increases don't get revenue from places like the schools, churches, municipal buildings, anything that's not taxed. If you have a tax increase, they don't see it. This way, it affects every property owner, because every property owner has a gas bill or a power bill.
It's actually interesting you'd mentioned that, because I had a ratepayer in yesterday, pointed it out to us, or to me,
Yeah.
and wanted to know why or how, and I said, I would talk to you.
Okay.
So,
So there is a whole process, and you'll see some municipalities will be at the max for both of them. And you'll see some that'll be at 0. So you'll see in that continuum, you'll see everybody at a different point. And again, don't get me wrong, it is an additional cost to our ratepayer. But if we didn't have that franchise fee of $440,000 coming to our municipality, and we wanted to provide the same levels of service, you'd be looking at a much different tax structure as well. So I just wanted to point that out. Return on investment, same as we have in the 21 budget. So we have funds in our general account. We generally will fluctuate between the year, depending on cash flow, anywhere between $3 million and $5 million in our general account. But we also have approximately $2.3 million invested with BMO in their investment group, and the town made that decision about 20 years ago and has had dollars tied up in BMO. So we get interest revenue off our general account, and then we'll get the investment income off of our BMO account. So that's what that investment revenue is. Penalties, so just so council's aware, if you do not pay your taxes by September 1st, you are charged a penalty of 4% on what's outstanding. If you don't pay it again by October 1st, there's another 4% billed. And if it's still outstanding at the end of December, there's another 5% billed. So that generates approximately $25,000. Council during COVID reduced those penalties in half. So they used to be 8. Now they're 4, 4, and 5. And we have no intention administratively, unless council wants to change those penalties to increase them back up again. So, but it would generate about $25,000. Rental and lease revenue. So we do have some rental. One of the rental opportunities we have right here is the building on, or the addition on the west side of this building. So we have a Reality Bites leases that space from us. It's about 800 square feet, 800 to 1,000 square feet. They rent it from us. And so that's included in there. And we've got some other rental dollars that come in. There's some billboards out on the highway, out by on Highway 9. Pattison Group has that they rent from us, and we get some revenue there. So there's a little bit of revenue there. MSI operating, we're anticipating and kind of been led to believe that we'll have the same amount as we did in 2021, which is $152,000. Good news in this budget and good news for our 21 budget is I was at Regional Emergency Management meeting on Monday in Youngstown, and Mr. Jones from Special Areas was handing out checks, and he dropped off a check for $300,000 to the town of Hanna through their industrial tax transfer. So we only had $200,000 budgeted in 2021. So it's a windfall there. And in the 21 budget, and he indicated that that was his understanding moving forward, that this would be our new baseline. So that's excellent news. MSI Capital, again, it looks like it's reduced a ton. We're reduced 407,000 from what we were allocated in 21. But as those of you who are at AUMA in 21, they upfronted a bunch. So we were allocated 684 in 21. They're dropping 22 and 23 down to 277. So in their mind, they take the 277 twice and the 684 added together, and they say they dropped the MSI capital by 25%. But that was our goal meeting with the minister, is moving forward, the 277 cannot be the new bar moving forward. So federal gas tax, so we get allocated annually from the feds, and it is 153,000 in 2022 is our estimate. 2021, the last couple of years, I think 2 or 3 out of the last couple of years, they've doubled the federal gas tax as a one-time thing. So but we haven't heard any news of them doubling it again in 22. So we're counting on 153,000 from the federal gas tax, and that's for infrastructure related projects. FCM is a federal nonprofit, and they have an asset management grant that we applied for in 2021. It's in review. We haven't heard whether we've been approved or not, and that's to do some updates to our infrastructure study and updates on our GIS system, as well as looking at doing some building condition assessments. So having an engineer consultant come in to the arena, for example, and look at the lifespan of all of the components in the building and give us a bit of a cost plan moving forward. So we've got this revenue in here as if we're going to get it. We've drawn from surplus when we haven't spent money in 2021. So 2021 budget, council had allocated $10,000 for tax incentives. We haven't used any of that money. We've had no requests come forward that meet the incentive policy. We allocated, yeah.
What are tax incentives? Like, what would that categorize as? Like, what?
Categorized if somebody wanted to come to the municipality who wanted to bring a new business, for example, and said, I would set up a new business in town, but I don't want to pay taxes for
3 years.
3 years. Council can look at that and say, okay, yeah, you're gonna bring 10 jobs, yeah, we're willing to do that.
And lots of communities do it.
Yeah, yeah, so demolition incentive, we've had in place for a number of years. Demolition incentive, so if someone wanted to tear down their house, tear down a garage, tear down their business, we would give them up to $2,500 on a residential property and up to $4,000 on a business. I know not big dollars, but kind of a little bit of help if they move forward. When I first moved here in 2014, we had a lot of uptake on it and we were spending it. The last few years, we haven't had much. This year, we did have one applicant take us up on it, and I believe, get my streets mixed up, I believe it was on 5th or 6th where one of the old churches was. There was a church and a hall. We had a
Oh, next to
Yeah.
the.
we had a couple of, we had
Anglican.
some people move in here 3 or 4 years ago and they were using both, and their long range plan was so they got everything corded and we knocked down the old hall part, I believe, and they built a new garage on it. So that's in there, and we did use 7,500, and we do, as I've talked to the mayor briefly about it, we wanted to look at doing a council chambers upgrade, both technologically. This doesn't normally work because somebody's got their back to the screen. If we can put up some projectors around, and we've struggled with this table. It's a beautiful table, but it's not ideal for,
What we do.
council set, what we do. We've got our people around the table minimized today. Normally, what we've done when we were in here pre-council, we'd have some staff on this side and we'd have council on this side, and it's workable, but it's not great. So we were looking at whether we could design a different style of table that would be more like in the old council chambers, or a U shape or something, so it's easy to look, easy to see. But we did a little bit of work on that in 21, but not a lot. So we would look at bringing that forward to continue that in 22. Police. So
In that demolition incentive, you said there's the 7,500 not spent in 2020?
yeah,
What about?
sorry, 2020 and wasn't spent in 2020. We brought it forward to 21, and we've only spent 2,500 in 21.
Okay, what's his name, couldn't talk him into a plan? Peterson?
No,
He wouldn't,
no.
really. But
Well-
you're sending him a bill then.
Well, the cost of, and it's not when you're talking and knocking down a building that's gonna cost you $30,000, $4,000 isn't significant. So,
Well,
in their minds,
Just that.
yeah. So that's there. So police, we get a portion of the tickets revenue that, from the town of Hanna, or in the town of Hanna. This number is reduced from the 21 budget. We just use a 3-year average, what they've done the last 3 years. And this year, whether you talk to people or not, and they say they're getting tickets, their numbers are still down. Their revenue is down. I think to the end of August or September, it's, $5,000-6,000, our share of the ticket funds we've got. So,
well, we had the ghost car out yesterday.
Mr. Neal, just to go back on that draw from surplus, the tax incentive, so when businesses access that money, are they charged an interest rate on it? Or
No.
is that like
No.
virtually a freebie? Like they just, if their proposal is accepted, they're just granted the money?
Yeah.
I see.
well, they're granted, not necessarily the money, but we use this, for example, if we have a property that's supposed to pay $10,000 in taxes. And they come in and say, we want to buy that, we want to bring people in, but we don't want to, we want a tax holiday or a tax break, then we still have to tax that property. But then this money basically offsets it that we've set aside from another pocket, so.
Thank you.
Turn the page over, fire. So the 102.9 you see there is basically our estimation on our fire calls. So when our fire guys go out into special areas, when they go out into on the highway, we bill special areas for any calls out there. We bill Alberta Transportation for any highway work, and we believe it's going to be somewhere in the $102,000 range. Drawn from surplus, I've got this identified in here. It's what we're doing. Previous council ordered our new rescue truck. It's 18 months delivery. So it was ordered here in September. We don't expect to take hold of it until March or April of 23, but we had to pay a 10% deposit. And what this transfer from surplus is special areas. The total cost of the project was $650,000. Special areas wrote us a check already for $325,000. So we put that in the bank, and we're going to transfer the difference into reserves, and then we'll pull it out as we need to spend money in 22 and as we need to finalize it in 23. So that's what that draw is for. By law enforcement, just a 3-year average in terms of what we bring in for business licenses and dog license. So that's the 3-year average. Airport, for those of you who don't know, we do have a residential suite that we do rent out. So this assumes that it will be rented for the full year in 2022.
Has that price increased at any time?
We haven't increased it lately. It's been a year or two. It's a small suite in the basement, and we charge $600 a month. So.
And utilities.
And no, we charge, utilities are
part of the
included because they're all part of the terminal building. The only utility they're responsible for is internet or cable or whatever, but the power, water, gas is all part of the terminal building.
And that's always rented out, excuse me, and that's continuously rented out? usually?
We've had times when there hasn't been anyone in and we've been looking for a renter. We've had the same renter in there now for about 14, 15 months.
And a big, well, quite a renovation went on not that long ago. Not quite.
Quite a while ago. It's a neat little bachelor suite, if you want to call it that. It's not very big. And you're in the basement. You do have windows at ground level, but and it's you know, you're out there by yourself.
Yeah.
So and it provides a little bit of security for us as well. So it's nice, definitely nice to have somebody there.
That's for sure.
Water supply and distribution. So the $1,087,000 that you see there is what we estimate we will bring in through water, basically our water rates and our water bills. So our water rates are going to increase from Henry Kruger in 2022 from $2.89 a cubic meter to $2.94 a cubic meter. We are still estimating that we will bring, even though there's the increase in rates, we will bring in less revenue because our water usage has gone down, and we generally use a 3-year average. It might go back up again in future years because there was an increase in water use in 2021, primarily because of the dry year and more people.
My water the lawn, trust me, that's where the increase was.
No, there is. So we also charge on our utility bills a fixed fee of $55 a billing period, and that's to cover some of the costs in preparing the bill, as well as some of our fixed costs in our repairs and maintenance and upkeep on a annual basis, as well as you'll see when we get into the budget that we try and transfer, our goal is to transfer $50,000 each year for water into a reserve and for sewer into reserve. So that's collected through this fixed fees. So we're not proposing to change them at this point in time. Sanitary sewers, again, no changes to the billing structure. We charge $30 a billing period for sewer. And if you go over 30 cubic meters in a billing period, then it's 30 cents a cubic meter on top of that. Sanitary sewers gets to be a challenging one, especially in the summer, because people will, as the mayor suggested, I'm putting water out, but I'm putting it into the ground. It isn't even going into your sewer system. And that's why we allow the 30 cubic meter buffer, for lack of a better word. So,
And that's very generous too.
yeah, so there's no change. Our plans administratively are no increases to any of those utility rates.
One thing with that, I know, again, back in our point, we used to incentivize the water use in the summertime to get people to water their lawns and stuff, just an idea. I mean, we're talking about beautification and appeal, so I know they used to bump the limit up. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't substantial, but it was an incentive to keep your lawns green and looking good. So
Well, and water's becoming water's a
a
commodity.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
It's a commodity,
Yeah,
and the increases and they're going up. And I know, we all talk about being good stewards of the environment and saving water and conserving water. And I always get a chuckle when I talk to our plant manager, Carl, because Garth goes, use as much water as you can, because they have in their rate structure, they have their capital dollars built into their rate structure. So the more water that's used, the more capital they're accumulating. And I know that Garth and the commission do a great job on our water treatment and in our plant and our system. But at the end of the day, they've got some large projects hanging over their heads in terms of raw water lines and water lines. When you look at how far the commission goes, so Garth would say spend as much water as you want, but I do know, and he's come to council before, and I do think that as the prices of the commodity have been increasing, people have been pulling back. Not everybody, but some people have been pulling back a little bit just because of the cost. And I know that's a concern Garth has. So
Well, and bottled water versus people
Yeah.
drinking water out of the tap.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what his job is to make it, quality water.
so
And it
percent,
costs a lot more to treat it now than it did before, and the power, to pump that up the other day, we paid the utility bills, I think it was $98,000. We paid in power, just pump the water from the river.
Yeah.
Retarded.
So we've got water, sorry, Kim,
Yeah,
I'll
no,
pump
go
a
ahead.
little bit. That water, does it pump directly from the river to town, or does it, do we have a?
Cooling pond, there's a pond that's down just south of the cooling pond.
Okay.
they have their
So-
raw, they call it their raw water reservoir, and it's out by the cooling station.
Okay,
And so when the water comes up, at times when it's coming up in the spring and late in the fall, they'll divert water. They have the ability to divert water into the reservoir, and the water will remain in the reservoir. And then from the reservoir to the plant, they draw it as they require it.
So the reservoir is all aerated.
no, that's.
So,
We'd ask.
no, lots. I find this is an excellent learning opportunity for council. And you'll learn a ton going through this process. So garbage collection, we anticipate the rates will remain the same. We have a 3-year contract for residential garbage collection with Darcy Limpert. So he collects the residential garbage, and we basically bill back to our residents what that cost is. His contract was for 3 years. And again, time flies. It'll be due again the end of 22. So no anticipation of changes there. Regional waste, we are anticipating, Councillor Campion, the requisition will be the same. I know you haven't had your budget meeting yet, but
No, we haven't, and I don't know whether it's gonna increase next or building a new cell, hopefully not, but
There's an increase.
I'm gonna try and keep them from doing that.
so what we do, Mr. Mayor, is that 337,000 that they would requisition from us, we basically capture that through our utility bills we call a regional waste site fee. And that includes the operations of Big Country Waste Commission at Youngstown as well as the Hanna site. So it worked out to last year we had to implement it kind of mid-season. So we were at $37 per billing period. We bumped $4 per billing period because we missed a couple of billing periods in 21 to recapture that money. If the dollars stay the same or the requisition stays the same, we can drop our requisition by $2 a billing period and still cover that 337,000. So
that doesn't cover the dump just north of town.
yes, it does. We have
And
no costs for the dump. It's commission manages all the costs there. So, but it's basically, I know people will think, and we get that question, what is the regional waste fee? Well, yes, you pay to get your garbage picked up at your house, but that garbage has to be managed and handled. So that $40 per billing period is to be able to deal with your waste to the end state. So, so that's there. FCSS, we get a provincial grant. We're assuming is going to remain at the 2020 level, which is the same as the 21 level, which is 89,800. Cemeteries reflects a 3-year average on sales. Sales sounds like a bad word, but on purchase of plots, purchase of columbarium sites, those types of things. This year we've had for whatever reason, an exceptionally good year in the financial side there. We've had lots of plots and columbarium spots purchased. So, and I think for the new council as well, we just had a third columbarium added here in the last few weeks. It arrived and was set up. We were pre-selling niches in that columbarium before we even had it here. And it's something we'll have to look at. We've got a pricing structure for columbarium niche that's the same whether you take the bottom row or the top row. And we've still have some spots in niches in the 1 and 2 on the bottom row that are still available, but everybody wants the top row. So whether we want to come to a different pricing structure to say if you're going to be in the top row of the columbarium, you're going to pay 3 times what you pay on the bottom row. That might get some people to
By the bottom row.
take the bottom row. So
And
Can
so-
we swap a piece of property? Like I've got a stall out there, I guess you want, and can I move into
plot.
the third one?
Yeah, probably. We'd have to look at that, Councilor Crowe. As long as the one in the third is a vacant spot, that might be an option to look at, because I don't think you've damaged your site in.
No.
Yeah, usually, yeah.
Do you want to move up or
I
down?
haven't even seen the inside of it.
So that might be a possibility. I don't know if we've ever had that question, Councilor Crowe, but
No. It was
Sorry.
purchased by my sister, and she's the one that suggested, well, if you want a different plot,
Check it
maybe
out.
you should check it out.
But the view is better on
But
West
it's,
Saturday.
no, I'm fine where I'm at.
And I have a question about, this is gonna sound very rude or whatever. How long has it been? There's a cost for doing, maintenance and yard care and everything. So I'm just wondering, has that price increased at all? Or
for the sale of our plots. So
Yeah,
we haven't for a number of years. We did look at it last year a little bit. And we're probably in the middle of the row in terms of where other municipalities are in terms of charging. I don't think we'll ever get to a point where our sales of our plots and niches are going to make the cemetery
no.
self-sustainable,
No,
but
no, but to help just sort of offset. some
yeah,
of
no,
the
we can
expenses.
review, like, we will review fees annually, so that's an opportunity that we can look at. Again, when we talk about reviewing fees, even if you make an adjustment at the end of the day to those fees, and you look at the big picture, you know, it might bring you in an extra $1,000 or
Just a couple
$2,000.
$1,000.
But it all counts, and I don't want to discount that, so, but we will look at fees, and I think we're kind of middle of the road with what we charge right now.
Just
so.
with the cost of, fuel
Yeah.
and.
Oh, everything's
everything
going
else
up,
to-
yeah, even this columbarium,
Yeah.
we just bought was approximately $22,000, and the previous one we bought about 4 years prior was 17. So,
Yeah, everything's.
so cemetery, commercial building lease, the HLC leases the building the town owns on Main Street where the business hub is located. So the town was donated that building about 4 years ago from Mr. L. And it is town-owned property. And so they lease it from us at $24,000 a year. Again, that's one of the costs that we talked earlier about having the business hub. Western Economic Diversification pays the learning center, they pay us. So
And there was a lot of renovations that were done on that building.
when the business hub took over, and part of the dollars they got from Western Economic Diversification, they did a total remodel of the inside. So new paint, new walls, new doors, new windows, new flooring, new furniture, you name it, they basically changed the inside around totally, so.
Mr. Neal, this is just a curiosity question, but if we were to lose the hub, just hypothetically, and not have that organization happening here, or if we were to relocate it, would there be room in this building to move them here and utilize it and reduce some overhead by a sale of that particular property?
Possibly, I don't know in space wise if there's enough here. We could do some remodeling and we could do some work. The other option too is if you wanted to, we do, again, it's a revenue thing. We do have that 800 or 1,000 square feet to the west. But if you move the current tenant out of there, you'd lose that money to bring in a business hub. So if we wanted to move them within the town office space proper, it's probably an option, but it would take some, might take some dollars to do, a little bit of renovation. So we do currently, as we sit, have, and I don't want to say this to the mayor, have 2 extra spaces, but we do have an office in the corner that we've labeled since we moved in here as the mayor's office. Again, wasn't used previously by the mayor a ton. And then there is an extra office that we did have the Chamber of Commerce rent. So we have a couple of spaces built in already, and it might be workable. Could be an option.
I'm just thinking of the dollars, the budget.
Yeah.
Line that we're working with
Yeah.
right now, where we're gonna have to do cuts and increases.
Yeah.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
And I think part of the, with the business hub located where it is accessibility. That I think that was half the problem, is people didn't know where to go to find the information regarding, businesses and that sort of thing. And having it on Main Street was a huge asset than trying to direct them to, the town or the provincial building for the learning center in that area for some resources. And so that was the whole idea of bringing it down to, a spot that it was downtown where people could, drop in if they wanted, if they're walking downtown. It was location.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt the current building they're in, it gives them great storefront visibility and great storefront presence.
Well, and their hours vary from ours.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but that's not
No,
insurmountable.
no.
So that's certainly an option that can be on the
I'm
table.
just thinking
No,
outside
no,
the box.
That's right.
Yeah,
I'm
no, no,
just
no,
thinking
yeah.
of
Yeah,
every
no, that's
dollar
great.
that.
No,
When it
that's
comes
an
down,
option,
push down to
that's an
shove.
option that can be on the table as we move forward, definitely.
Thank
Do you
you.
have also one point, it's not just the hub that's in there, because Harvest Sky is in there, the Chamber of Commerce is in there. So I'm
Community
assuming
Futures.
they're paying rent to the town through the
No.
hub?
No,
Community
Sorry.
Futures is.
sorry, the rent, we rent the space to the learning center at $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
So the learning center may collect dollars from the chamber and they may collect dollars from Harvest Sky. But that's their business model and their plan. I don't know
And
how that all
Community
works.
Futures, right?
And Community Futures, they may pay a portion of that back. I know for a fact, I know the chamber does pay rent to the learning center for their space. I don't know about Harvest Sky because they're an economic development business entity, but
That would be a little more difficult, I believe, to arrange for them. Obviously, they wouldn't come into the town office, right? So it would just be the hub portion, but not the rest.
sorry, Councilor Murphy, when I refer to the hub, I refer to everybody that's in there.
Everybody, okay.
That's how I refer to it. I refer to Harvest Sky Chamber. I refer to everybody in there as when I refer to the hub.
Thank
So
you.
And there's people that stop in and do rent computer space
Yeah.
and the little pods and
Yeah.
everything along the space.
So no, it certainly is sometimes you have to get creative, you have to look outside the box and you have to look at some solutions that might not be ideal solutions, but they're solutions that are within your capabilities financially. So that's the hub. Visitor Information Center. So we are assuming the HLC is going to operate it again.
Who was there?
Pardon me?
Who was there?
You mean who was there?
Oh,
The other night?
Oh.
So just as a question, and it's a good, again, an educational point. So the mayor texted me the other night and said,
6 o'clock, I walk out of my shop and there's somebody walking around the tourist information booth in the dark.
something going on at the tourist booth, and I said, I'm not aware of that, but I said, we do have a security system on the building and cameras, and he said, okay, fine. But when I talked to Lori the next day, so for new council especially, the upstairs of that building was vacant. So a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, time flies, council made a decision to lease the upstairs to Stage Hanna and Hanna Dance Association. So when I say lease, it was a free lease, but they're able to store their costumes up there and their props and whatever they have. And Lori is part of Stage Hanna, and she indicated to me they've been going down weekly, a group to, I think you're probably looking at your inventory,
We're
looking what you
building a
have.
costume bank that will be hopefully eventually a public, like a business.
So that's who you saw skulking around the building. So no, that was great. So we still, and we get to the expenditure side, you'll still see the town will assume the building and grounds operating costs for that facility. Basically, the HLC assumes all the other costs of buying their product, selling their product, paying their staff, all that thing. And we will be bringing forward that back to council. They did it in 21 as a trial year, and we're quite pleased with how things went and would like to continue. So we'll be bringing that back to council to extend their lease for future years. So we turn to the next page, recreation. So special areas grant, we're anticipating it will remain at this 2021 levels, which has been pretty consistent for the last number of years. So they give us those dollars to offset the cost of operating our facilities. So $187,000 is our expectation in 2021. Federal employment grant, we estimate what we brought in last year, 37,000. Swimming pool, this is our total revenue generation for the pool based on 3-year average. Kind of when doing the 3-year average has been really hard the last few years because COVID has impacted whether we've been open the full amount or not open the full amount, but we're quite confident in that $71,000 that will be. So that's your season passes, your lessons, your drop-in, your rentals, kind of the whole gamut. So arena, again, we're assuming we're going to get through a full season of 2022, both spring or January to March and October to December. And advertising, we're assuming we're gonna return closer to a normal level in terms of our ad space, both on the ice, on the arena boards, and on the wall signs. We've been down a little bit, partly because, you know, a lot of our advertisers were questioning, well, you've been closed, what benefit am I getting? So we've accommodated them a little bit, and for those who were struggling or not wanting to pay us in 20, we told them if they pay their 20, we'd give them 21 at half price. So we're moving forward, hopefully to 22, that we're not gonna have that excuse, so.
With the board advertising, is the advertiser responsible for the ad?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause
and that's
I-
theirs when they leave, so.
Okay, no, I mean, because it'd be a huge expense if you're changing out that advertiser on a yearly basis
Yeah.
you're not generating that revenue.
Yeah. So arena there, curling rink, again, assuming a full season, and their season is gonna be, and they started last week, their season is gonna look differently.
They dropped down.
They have less people able to curl because of the restriction program. So their numbers are gonna be down slightly, which is gonna, you know, cause them some challenges. And hopefully, as we move forward into the new year, where they have the majority of their bonspiels, that they'll be able to have those go and get back into things a little bit better and generate some revenue from their concessions, from their bar and those other things. So that's assumes, basically that 39.7 is the curling club share of the services. So we bill them for the time they're in the facility, a certain portion of the power bill, the gas bill, those types of things. And then, as I mentioned before, in about 2014, the curling club was in financial difficulty, owed the town a huge amount of money. Council made an agreement with them to waive a third of the cost. So that is a third less of what they would normally pay. So,
We're generating revenue with the farmer's market.
and while the rink rental at the 7,500 is the stuff we do with the farmer's market. Generally, in a normal year, we'll have 2 rummage sales in there. We'll have the rodeo dance and art show and stuff. And
Farmer's
we used to
market.
have the gun show and all those. So that's what that 7,500 is. Bull Diamonds assumes a full season and getting adults back out playing. Same with soccer, full season. Fox Lake, that's a 3-year average. We were higher than that, so it might be a little on the conservative side yet. Parks, so we've got a couple of capital projects in there. So we've set money aside before, except we have a typo there. I'll have to
I was
check
gonna
into
say,
that one.
they don't add up, so.
Yeah, we'll have to check into that one. So we've got walking trails. So council a couple of years ago has allocated $50,000 and we put in reserve to do some walking trail expansions. We left it in reserve knowing one of the reports or projects Mark was talking about is one of the consultants was looking at walking trails and locations and places. So we held off on spending that money. We're anticipating we're going to get that report here shortly, and then we could move forward with some trail expansions in 2022. One of the initial ones that has been on the plate for a few years was down around the lodge on Palliser Trail, if there was a trail off
They would use
there.
the trail.
Well, again, they have to use the trail too. And the challenge we're gonna have is the trails we have in town are shale. So they're not full season, all weather. Again, great to have asphalt trails, but there's a significant cost to that. So we've got those, and then tennis court resurfacing was a project that we didn't get to in 21. That is still carrying forward. So those monies we've set aside in reserves that we would pull back out to complete them. Hector King Hunter, $8,000. We may not need to do that. We did do some significant work at Hector King Hunter Park this year on our irrigation system. It's the irrigation system that was put in 30, 40 years ago when the park was designed. So we've had lots of challenges with it and replacing parts, replacing pipes. We had hoped this $8,000 had come to us from a donation from the Mayberries towards the park. So we had put in reserve and we thought we'd pull it out to do a irrigation project. One of the, we'd hope to move forward with it using, John Henry was our irrigation expert, and be able to contract him to do that and maybe do that on his own. Obviously, that wasn't an option. So we've got that. We would like to, but I know our parks crew did a lot of work on the park this summer in terms of irrigation, and so we might be in decent enough shape. I just need to follow up with them on that. Epic Adventure Playground Program, again, small amount of revenue. We haven't defined the program. It's been a different program during the COVID years than we typically operated, and whether we're able to return back to having 15 or 20 kids there and moving forward and being able to do that. So there still is some work around there. Centennial Place, again, assumes a full season. Rentals and drop-ins, we're estimating we'll get $7,200 in revenue. Lease agreements, we have lease agreements for the Kitty's Corner space, for the Dance Association space, and we also have a lease agreement with Hanna Band, but they haven't been operating because of COVID. So the two biggest users with the lease space are Kitty's Corner and Hanna Dance. So sponsorships, we do have a sponsorship with Heartland Generation for 20. So that's a part, and we are working through, we're at the point, the building's just over 10 years old now, and a lot of the sponsors that originally came on and provided sponsorships, they're technically expiring or expired, and how we can renew those with those same groups to continue to provide dollars. I know back when the building was built, that was the key thing. It was like a capital contribution to the building, so people were more excited about having naming rights and being a part of that. Than now the building's 10 years old and is the Super 8. It's changed now. The Canalta Fieldhouse worth what it was when they put their capital investment in. So we're working on that.
So was there terms originally attached to that?
Yes and no. That the whole fundraising component at that time was done by the CIA group. So kind of away from the town. So, but yeah, we think there is some terminology in some of the old agreements. So we're looking through that. So
The reason I'm asking is I sponsor a hole in the Elk Point Golf, or like built a hole in Elk Point Golf Course.
yeah,
And they just called here last year, actually, the same thing, looking to raise some money, and I said, go ahead.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that was 25 years ago.
yeah. So community center, again, our revenue is down. We're assuming we can, and the building is technically open and available for rent. And it still will be as of January 1. It's just what the restrictions are and how it limits people from using it. So we're thinking that we might get 50% of what we normally get to. Same with Lions Hall. We, for those that are new on council, in 2020, the Lions turned that space over to us. So those of you who are aware, they've got their little hall on the east end of our park shop. And they basically, their club was disbanding. They turned it back to us. We had it available for rent and we generated a little bit of dollars this year, but nobody's having any events or booking it for anything. So so that's kind of the major highlights on revenue. Now, Mr. Mayor, I'll move into the expenditure side. So salaries, it's a little bit of a tough one to explain, but I think council's aware that we've undergone some transitions. Last year we had, end of 2020, we had a long-term retirement. Mid 2021, we had a retirement. End of 22, we've got a couple of retirements coming up. But over, pardon me?
3.
Yeah, well, we're working with Rhonda to try and have her
Sorry.
back
Yes.
for some time in 22, so.
Partial retirement.
But we have in this budget, as it's reflected, there is an overall full-time salary reduction of $104,000 from 2021. The budget proposes, and this is always the controversial thing that council discusses. So this budget as it is includes grid step changes for 8 staff. So those on council, we have a salary grid for our employees, and there is 6 steps on it. And I always get this wrong, there's either a 3 or a 3.5% increase. Rhonda's saying 3 between each step. So basically, you start at step 0, you work well, everything's good, you can typically expect to get a 3% increase in year 1, and it'll continue to year 2 to step 5, and then you're at the top of our grid.
How many years does that take?
6.
6 years?
So there's a grid step in here for 8 staff. And this budget also carries, and again, this is open for discussion amongst council, a COLA adjustment of 1%. Last year, council allocated a 0 to COLA. I think in 2020 it was 1%. Get my years back. 2020 was 1% COLA. 2021 was a 0. We're proposing at this point in time for council's consideration of 1% in 21. So there are some grid changes from staff, and that's, when you look at that amount, 34,000, but that's moving people from the existing grid that they're on into a different grid as we're replacing staff. So, for example, moving Winona into Rhonda's role, moving Caitlin into Winona's role, those are those types of grid changes that are moving them from a grid to a different place on the grid. There's only 6 members of our staff that would be at the top of their existing grid that would get a COLA adjustment, and that $4,000 over the 6 people. We are looking at hiring 1 part-time staff who would start at a grid step, and that would be to manage our water utility accounts and to manage the front counter. So as we move forward, like I said, we want to move Winona into Rhonda's role. We want to move Caitlin into Winona's role. So someone, and normally we have someone there 5 days a week. We're initially planning to start at 3 days a week. And partly that's with the wanting to keep Rhonda available and around so that Rhonda can provide assistance to Winona, who will be moving into a new role. Winona will need to provide Caitlin assistance moving into a new role, and maybe be able to pick up some odd special projects of things that we haven't been able to get done. So retirement. So we've got through that, we've basically got we know Director of Community Services is done at the end of the year. Director of Bylaw Enforcement is done at the Protective Services done at the end of the year. Rhonda will be hopefully not retiring, but reducing her hours. So that's all reflected in that $233,000 saving. And I'm trying to think of the 4th staff, Rhonda. Oh, Kathy Lee. So she was retired in September. So that's it. You'll have to get your head wrapped around it, and we'll have more discussion about it, Mr. Mayor. But our bottom line on our full-time staff is there's a reduction of just over $100,000. So seasonal and part-time positions, we're advocating an increase of $4,000 across the board, and that's basically a 25-cent an hour increase to the grid.
How many positions? Do you figure?
Oh, that probably takes into account probably 20, 30, between 30 and 35. 35, yeah, probably close to 35. Between the pool and parks and Epic, and it's probably about 35 summer students. And I shouldn't call them all students, because some of them are longer term staff such as Pam and Lynn, who will start when the snow's gone in April and be able to start working. So but we're looking at a 25 cent an hour increase to their rate. Throughout the budget, you'll see on natural gas, we've tried to take the 3-year average. And we know that there will be there's scheduled to be another increase to, slipping my mind, carbon tax. I think in April of 22, there's another increase to the carbon tax, which goes right on your natural gas bill. However much per gigajoule.
Do we qualify to get that back?
No. No.
Is this through AUMA or Alberta municipalities rates or?
Well, that's using, natural gas, we have a contract with ATCO.
Okay.
But the carbon tax is outside that. They're the retailer and they charge us $2 a gigajoule and they get all their costs for transmission and distribution and everybody. And then of course, they'll just add the carbon tax to it, however much of a percentage of a gigajoule it is. So that's what we're estimating. Power, we're estimating a 10% increase. And that's primarily because our contract we have a contract through AUMA, AMSC that expires the end of December. It was a 3-year contract. Unfortunately, timing for us is energy prices, gas are going up. So we're pay about $5.30 kilowatt, not kilowatt, I can't remember.
Gigajoule.
No, that's gas.
Yeah.
That's
What
gas
Kilowatt
power,
hour?
yeah. And the projections we've got from AUMA and AMSC is if we took another 5-year agreement, it would be about $7. So there's an increase there. Petroleum, as you know, from 2020 to 2021, there was a significant increase. So we're basically taking the 3-year average and making a 25% increase. Insurance, we're using our 2021 rates and we're estimating a 5% increase.
Now, I noticed there's no totals at the end of the column.
Yeah, they're gonna be, as you
They're so
go
high,
through the
you don't wanna
budget,
see them.
well, no, as you go through the budget, because we've got gas at all of there'll be 20 categories that'll have gas and 20 that'll have power. But when you get through the detail stuff, you'll
That
be able
chart,
to see
yeah, I know.
each facility. So we could look at it and add them up. Insurance would be the easy one, but and then water and sewer, again, we bill ourselves for our use. It's no change to the net because we bill ourselves. It goes from, it shows it as expense, but it also shows as a revenue. So council, currently we've left council honorarium rates at they haven't been changed since 2019. So that's something council wishes to revisit. That's an option. What's in here is what is there for your monthly honorariums for both the mayor and council for the year.
That was council's choice too.
Yeah.
So that was put forward by council.
Yeah, so since 2019, there's been no adjustment to that. And it's reflecting the same as you will have been receiving since you were just elected here in October. We have to get you a check to everybody too for this, but we do have a technology allowance. We've changed it over the years, so we've allocated it to $250 a year for each of the 4 years. So over 4 years, you'll get $1,000 to use as you want to wish, but it is basically to cover the cost of you having an electronic device, receiving emails, phone calls, cell phones, that type of thing. Any of those types of things, it's designed to help offset those costs.
Mr. Neal, have you guys ever outsourced buying computers in bulk and getting it reduced rather than, having the counselors seek that out themselves? I know lots of people have their own, but sometimes I had to go from an Apple product to something completely different so that it would work
Yeah.
with your guys' system.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering, like, has that ever been outsourced?
I don't know if it's been outsourced, but if we wanted to, if council made a direction that we provide every council member with a electronic device, certainly we could follow that direction, but you're probably looking at, and I don't know exact numbers, but you're probably looking for a laptop or something, minimum of $1,000 a person.
I know
And
as a trustee.
that would be the
back in
towns, and it
day-
would come back, that would be the town's laptop, and, only town
at the end of the day.
business on it at the end of the day. And I think over the years, and I wasn't here when the town went this process, but I think a lot of people thought, well, they already have their own device, whether they have to upgrade it or do whatever, that's hopefully what that $1,000 will help compensate for. But then you can use it for more than one purpose, and it's yours. But we're open to, if that's a direction that council would like us to pursue, we can certainly price out cost for 7 tablets or 7 laptops or whatever you want, and purchase them and set them up, and then, they would be town owned.
Economically, I think stick with $250 and
Absolutely.
go on.
Yeah. Well, and I just say that because as a trustee back in the day, they outsourced and we got new computers, and virtually that's all they were used for.
Mhm.
So they were your device to use for trustee and elected officials' work. At the end of 4 years, virtually, you're looking at buying a new computer. At that time, those computers became whoever, but they're honestly obsolete. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
buying a new computer virtually every 4 years anyhow. But the cost savings was huge because of where they got them from, our supplier. So, and you know what, I know it's past tense now because that didn't happen and most of us have our own digital devices, but I just, maybe for the future, you know what, I think it should be an option. I don't know if everybody had computers, but just to see what's available to us.
And I'll look, and this is where Councilor Olson's wearing his double hat, but
I would struggle to think $1,000 would
Well,
be
and
anywhere near the cost of one computer that, I mean, I already have, I spend significantly more than that.
This didn't cost me
Annually,
$1,000 to buy this new
And I
computer.
have, there's a lot more to it. I mean, there's something Lori has to support this. It's assumed that you would take that device to work. It's a town device. It would significantly be significantly more than $1,000.
Mhm.
And I choose to buy more expensive devices. I like the ability to do that.
I
Personally,
understand.
which isn't for everybody, I know.
We did do that at Veterans Affairs. We did supply laptops to all of the counselors, went on the road. And it became difficult because they couldn't use it for anything personal. So they had to bring 2. They had to bring their own tablet and a laptop because they couldn't put anything personal on it because it belonged to the government.
Mhm.
So it actually became quite awkward and people complained.
And to do it properly, there would be a significant security investment
Yeah. please
from the
do.
town as well.
When I started, I got a town laptop. It was given like a town computer. I could use it for whatever I wanted.
Security is
Yeah,
considerably
you signed
different
a
than when you
document-
started.
You signed a document to the contrary.
Yeah, right on. But I guess some of this money is a lot to help pay for your internet costs plus printing and things like that.
Yeah.
It all adds up, and
and whether it's,
$1,000 it's joke. It doesn't even come close.
Well, I think it's
Depending what it
a nice
costs you.
gesture to be able to. offer
Yeah, and again,
It's not even close.
that's where this discussion is available. If council basically felt that $250 a year is not justified or not enough, council has the prerogative to change that to whether they wanted to be a $500 a year or
Yeah,
$1,000 a
see,
year.
with Hockey Alberta, we were $100 a month.
Well, that's I'm paying right now. I'm paying over 100 a month for my internet.
But I'm gonna be the devil's advocate, Councilor
Okay.
Campion, that even if you weren't on council, you're not gonna cancel your internet subscription.
Oh, I didn't have it before.
Well, I know, but things
Don't
have
bet on it,
changed.
buddy.
No, I guess that's the assumption, right? But
Did internet exist before you got on
Most of
council?
Most of your staff are in the same.
I won't go there.
and that's
I'm
only-
just alluding to the fact that, you know what, really, it shouldn't, to me, this shouldn't, the extra expense for the technology that I'm solely using for my business here, because this computer is not going to be used for anything else. Because I feel like there's a lot of private confidential information that's going to come across this computer. So you know what, but I honestly don't feel like, some of the costs incurred the internet, I understand. The device itself, I shouldn't have to come to council and be digging in my own coffers to support my role here. I feel like that should be the duty of the council. So, I'm coming with that, and
Totally agree.
I'll pay for my internet, I would have it, I totally agree. The device, no, that's a whole different.
So, Mr.
entity.
Mayor, I guess we're in discussion and review of the budget. If this is something that is something you want to move forward before we approve the budget on the 14th, so in our next couple of meetings, I think council needs to come to consensus and say, are we good with $250 a year? Or do we want a different number for that? And then we move forward with that direction.
So I think for the process, bring your thoughts forward to me. And we can have a discussion. I'm not saying we won't do it, or I'm not saying we will do it, but I'm just, for the sake of this, let's move on from it today.
Yeah, we'll move on from it today.
And
Yeah.
then come to me with what you feel is fair, and I'll compile it, we can get together quickly and make a decision.
Or the other option, Mr. Mayor, as we move forward as council before, if Councillor Warwick, for example, feels strong that number should be 500 or 1,000 or whatever that number should be, during the budget process, she has the opportunity to make a motion
Okay,
to change the amount to whatever, and then council is able to have discussion on that and vote on that.
yeah,
whichever way they go.
I think it's a fairly large issue, so I don't think it'd be covered off in a couple of minutes in a council meeting, so that's what I'm saying, if we can do it prior to and then make it transition smoothly.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that what this is about? Is this not the opportunity to have those open dialogue
Definitely, yeah.
conversations?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we have that instead of offsiding and coming to you individually? Why wouldn't we have a committee of the whole discussion around it? And then we could make some decisions and garner, is it going to be supported,
I
not
think,
supported?
yeah.
And then we
Oh,
go
I
forward with a
agree.
motion from there.
I feel it should be a day two thing, like we'll go through.
Yeah, it's
all
not a
this and
day
then
one
we'll-
thing,
Yes, and
but
I-
it's a day two or a day three thing as we
Okay,
move forward.
Yeah.
But I agree, Councillor Warwick, that's the process we've used before. If any one of you around this table have a particular opinion or stance on any of the budget items and want it changed from what's in this draft, that you do your homework and you put your resolution on the table, and then there's discussion at the end of the day. Your fellow colleagues will vote in favor or oppose. I also agree with Mayor Pavischuk to a little bit, and that's how bureaucracy in council is. Sometimes you spend a lot of time on something that's going to affect the budget by a few $1,000s a year, and you pass a $1.5 million project in 2 minutes. So I know Mr. Mayor probably doesn't want to spend an hour on this during one of our next two meetings, but that's the process. So that's what it is right now, is $250 a month, or sorry, a year, sorry.
Oh, that's-
I don't have that amount in the budget.
You're trying to keep up with them.
So, and then with council, we're returning to closer to travel and subsistence, closer to pre-COVID levels. So there's just under $18,000 in the budget for, which would basically deal with AUMA, costs to go to AUMA, both accommodation, travel, as well as the registration and per diems. But also there is some other dollars in there for other opportunities, based on your boards and committees or what your appetite is for the further education. I know at AUMA there was some discussion about how do we, if we want some additional training in certain areas, how do we move forward? What is the process? And we don't have good defined process there. We have some additional dollars in there, and basically what we've done in the past is basically said, if Counselor Murphy wanted to attend a course somewhere and it was gonna cost $1,000, then she would approach the mayor and say, I'd like to take this course. I think it would benefit me in this regard, and then that could be an option. The other thing, and we've talked about it, and certainly I'm open to it, is if we wanted to allocate a certain amount to each counselor and to the mayor, and basically then if you've got $2,000 or $2,500 assigned to you for travel and training, then you choose what you want and where you go. It's might be the easiest and simplest. So those are some things we can hash out as we move forward. So
that would be a budget, you'd have a $2,500 budget, and if you use it, you're reimbursed that $2,500. If you don't use it, that money still is there.
yes,
Correct.
And could that money be transferred to, say, another that maybe isn't, or that would be specific to that,
well, I guess that would be a conversation between you and the fellow counselor.
depending on how
Yeah.
much somebody.
Or maybe you still leave a little bit as a above and beyond that. So we've generally speaking in my time here with council, there hasn't been a ton of requests to do additional courses or conferences or training. I think amongst the AUMA and then amongst some travels to some of your meetings and some of your workshops. Like I know PEP hosts or has hosted a annual 1.5-day conference. So if you're the PEP member, the PEP members generally went to that and the towns picked up the cost. But there hasn't been a ton of requests. I think the council members have been busy enough with their own personal lives and their own personal work that they haven't wanted to take on a lot of extra additional training or courses. So
The travel rate of 50 or 55 cents a kilometer.
50 cents.
Yeah. Here it's 50 cents. Some of the boards are 55, but who establishes that? This
Council does,
council?
yeah. And we haven't made any adjustment to that for years. So as you guys fill out your payroll or your
The
forms for
fuel
AUMA,
has almost doubled, so.
yeah, again, we've used 50 cents a kilometer forever. I think we might have adjusted, but I think you get $25 for supper, $20 for lunch, and $15 for breakfast. Whether that covers it or not, I don't know, but that's the amounts that have been established by previous councils. So if that's something you want to see changed or increased, certainly bring it up and we can do that. So we can bring it back to council.
I was just gonna make a suggestion, just food for thought, is attaching it to the provincial average.
Yeah.
So it's always adjusted to the provincial average of what the rate of mileage is.
It's actually a provincial
50.5.
government rate.
Yeah.
50.5.
That's where this was used from.
That's what I'm saying.
When it
There's-
was 50, the provincial government has raised it, but
It
that's
is
where
now
this 50 cents came from,
It
was
is.
the provincial rate.
50.5 cents.
Yeah,
Probably.
it was- yeah,
Way
it's
up.
just, yeah, I know, it, but you,
That's not
when they
correct,
paid you,
actually.
they didn't put that zero little bit on there, you didn't see it.
That extra, yeah. So I don't know where that is. Councils of the day have been satisfied and comfortable with that, whether it does cover everything or not. I know fuel's gone up
No, and
tremendously,
it is,
but
it's also supposed to cover
Yeah.
the wear and tear of the vehicle.
Yeah.
But I know the federal government through the province adjusts it every year. It's just, we've never seen fuel prices this high for a long time. So that was just
yeah,
I was wondering about that.
Well,
Yeah,
on
but
a
you're gonna be
virtual-
buying electric cars.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
everything is open for discussion and review. So certainly if that's something that you want to put on the table, that's something we can put on the table.
But that would qualify to, does that also carry on for staff?
Generally, we use the same
The same
rate
rate
for
for staff
staff
as
who are
well.
traveling.
for
Like, for
courses?
example, when I went to AUMA, I took a town vehicle around the road with me. So there's no mileage to me. The town will fill the truck up with gas and that's how we move forward. So,
Okay, can we keep moving
Yeah,
along here?
yeah.
Because we are running out
Yeah,
of time. So
yeah. So administration, couple of the changes in administration that are highlights that I'm just bringing to your attention. So the medical clinic, the town is a partner in the operation of the medical clinic. There's a significant increase to their cost of the clinic in 2022, and primarily almost all as a result of the new doctor recruitment. So we paid, and I don't have that number here, we're paying just about $28,000 more in 22 than we did in 21. So I believe 21's contribution was in the 121 range, 122 range. It is at 149 now. We are assuming that it will go down in 23 and 24, but it will be subject to if there is future doctor removals and recruit. So,
Yeah.
the reason it's gone up is each of the doctors pay rent to the clinic board for their space in the clinic, and that includes the staff and all of the support. With the new doctor coming in, they have a program where they provide a certain number of rent-free months to allow them to get established
They're kind of an incentive.
and move forward. Before, they did have a cash bonus system. They went away from that, and they do, if you aren't aware, they do have another doctor retained. It's just waiting for them to go through the process of assessment by Alberta Health before they'll be able to practice here, but they are hoping that that will be sooner than later.
I believe there's a practicum and stuff in there as well.
So,
And that is also shared with special areas
Yes.
as well as Starland.
Yeah.
So that is not just the only cost. So that's about $70,000. But it's shared
Yeah, it's-
basically on the population.
it's based on
base.
a per capita
Yeah.
formula. So the town of Hanna is the largest per capita of ours. So we take the brunt of that, but it is unusual, 100%, a little bit unusual that the municipality is contributing, $100,000 to $150,000 a year to a clinic. And that's a service we provide, and it's a cost we provide to ensure we have good medical staff and good medical care in our community. So I just wanted to bring that out to you, your attention. In the past, we provided a grant to the Masonic Temple and the Roundhouse Society in lieu of their municipal tax portion. Only municipal, not the school portion.
Basically, being a provincial historic resource, they are exempt of paying taxes, and instead of doing the documentation application, town has chose to go the grant route. So I am looking at applying for tax exemption
Status, okay.
status on that. So that is really not a grant. Well, it is, but it isn't. But anyways.
For now it is.
Yeah.
Now it
So
is, yeah.
travel, training and subsistence for admin staff is increased closer to pre-COVID levels, similar to council. Staff hasn't had any training opportunities or conferences or anything to go to. We're assuming that that's going to pick up a little bit. Professional services is a big category, and it's got a bunch of different things in it. It's got anything from our internet, monthly internet connections for all our facilities, to our financial software programs from our financial software provider. We put Microsoft licensing. We put some new computers in there. We put things such as engineering consultations. We have a $10,000 amount, so we've got some dollars in there to consult engineers if we have projects or questions that come up that we need their direction. This amount, this 149 also has the asset management project in it this year. It has, which is offset by $40,000 grant on the revenue side. It has the council chambers technology upgrade in here for this room that was carried forward from last year. And then the other things we have in administration, not under professional services, but we talked earlier, the demolition incentive, the storefront incentive, the tax incentive. And we pay other administration, we pay our Palliser Regional Municipal Services contribution, which has increased 3% from 2021. So it's 32, our contribution to Palliser is 32,000 in 2022. Japanese student anticipates no program in 22. Tax recovery property. So we have a piece of property that the town owns that we took through tax recovery that had a vulnerable resident who lived in it. And so what we've done, rather than throw that individual out on the street, the town made a decision at that time to rent the property to that person. So we generate $1,000 a month revenue off that, and you'll see the expenditure here. The net here, the 3360, is what is the difference between the revenue and what our costs are. We transfer that to capital or to a reserve in case we need to put a new furnace in case we need to, do typical landlord obligations. We've got those dollars set up. So
I'm sorry, go ahead, Angie. Go ahead. Is that property a safe? Like it's a good building that this person's in?
Decent.
Okay. Just, there's been a few in town, fires and things.
Yeah.
Worry about the liability.
Yeah. So we've got insurance on, we insure it
Okay.
as a town-owned facility, but we do rent it. Council made the decision at that date, and it's been a few years now, not to throw this person out of their house, but yet still get, some value, not just you stay there, it's yours. The town owns it, we'll let you continue to live there, but you're renting it. So a little bit unique. That's the only one we got that way, but
Very human, actually. It's
we
nice.
made that decision. Police costs are going up from 48 to 72. So that's an increase of $24,000 that we have no control over. Firefighter remuneration. This is basically what the firefighters will be compensated for their time and their service, based on the number of calls they respond to and the number of hours they put in training. Emergency management, as you're aware, we are losing our director of emergency management. So my proposal moving forward is to contract a director of emergency management position out. And so we've got some dollars in the budget for that. Same goes along with bylaw services. We've had some initial discussions with the Special Areas Board about contracting a peace officer to provide bylaw services to the town of Hanna. So we're still working through that, but that is the direction we're moving forward. And that amount, I haven't got any confirmation from Special Areas in terms of what type of charge they would be looking at. So it is an estimate at this point in time. So, and that would take care of, if we contract per hour for them, they will provide the vehicle, the officer, the training, there will be no other cost to the town for bylaw enforcement. They'll provide the truck, the fuel, everything.
So that would be a shared position? Or would they be dedicated?
No, it wouldn't be, it would not be dedicated because we cannot afford to have a dedicated bylaw enforcement officer, peace officer. So it would be as required, as needed. And I can't even go to them right now and say we would need somebody 2 days a week. They have to be flexible because bylaw will ebb and flow depending on the season. And they seem to be open to that. But yeah, so I'm estimating that we might use someone the average of 8 to 10 hours a week. But we haven't gone through this, so I don't know for a fact, so. Yeah, go ahead.
Back on this police one.
Yeah.
Do we have any other options other than the RCMP?
We don't because of our size. Our RCMP is, province has contracted RCMP to serve all communities under 5,000. But as you're aware, the province is doing a study on potentially forming a provincial police service. And at that point in time, that could, and I don't want to say, no, Councillor Kroll, I'm trying to think of some small communities that have their own town police officer. But I think if we went down that road, as much as we don't like the 72, it would be higher than that.
With coal.
Yeah, with all
Yeah.
the benefits and
Yeah,
stuff.
and truck and training and,
Yeah.
you know, and all of the technology required to be connected as a police officer. So I shouldn't say we don't have any options, but any options we have would be quite limited, Councilor Pro. And that number is destined to go up. So that's not the end of the request. The end of the request, I think, is just under 150,000. And that's in a couple of years' time. So it's been very controversial because people who were under $5,000 never paid. So this is all new, and it's a significant cost to municipalities. Anyways, common services, just some of the highlights under common services or public works for a different term. So we do have a grader lease. We're midway through a lease on a grader. That's our lease payments. We do have in the budget $100,000 for concrete sidewalk replacements, as we have in the past. We have 30,000 in the budget, operation budget, for asphalt pavement patches as we move forward. And streetlights, just so you know, streetlights, that's our estimated cost for streetlights on an annual basis. We don't own them, ATCO does, but that's the power to have those streetlights operating 24/7, 365. So.
Did you want to mention SPCA expanding?
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't put that in there, but thank you, Councilor Bowden. So the SPCA, if you've heard the news, is tentatively has said they were going to be disbanding the end of this year. We have previously allocated $5,000 to the SPCA. So I've pulled that out for now. Certainly if something gets up and operating and running, whether it's a new group, there may be a request that would come that we would deal with at a later date if council wished to be a funder of that organization. And I would imagine that if there was going to be a new or different organization that was resurrected, they will be coming to council for funding.
Do you have any idea on what the cost could be
No,
on that?
council's been paying $5 for probably the last 2 or 3 years.
Is there a building that that the town could offer space in? Say the track.
And
I'm sorry.
I don't think so, Councilor Bowden, just based on, like, if they're gonna operate the way they're operating now with 40 or 50 cats in the facility, we don't have anything. We don't have anything that's empty or vacant that.
Or even
It's a pretty big
or
room.
even-
Well,
or
okay.
even or even a temporary space, like a space for a temporary building, like the space that's out at the whole transportation.
I don't think we'd want to have 50 cats.
I don't think
Have
so,
you ever
but.
been walked in that building down there, SPCA?
No, well, I did a long time ago and it takes your breath away.
Yeah,
Yeah. Not
So,
in a good
so again,
Not in a
the
good
first
way.
step has to be someone resurrecting that group and doing some work. And I think that, I'm not ruling that out as a possibility. I think that may happen. And if they do, we will certainly be open to conversations with them if they need some help, and we'll have those discussions with them. And if there is a request for financial contribution, that will be a decision made by council. So.
Thank you.
Where were we? Airport. We do have a $12,000 in the budget. We have, if you've been in there, we had issues with the west wall. Water was getting in through the west wall, and we were having mold and moisture issues in the west wall. So we've torn the drywall out, had the drywall torn out, and it's, you know, a building in construction right now. But we've had an estimate from a local contractor to redo that wall inside, so re-drywall it, retape it, repaint it. And we've also got an estimate from another local contractor with putting a different, it's stucco, so putting a different type of siding over that stucco to prevent the moisture from entering that west wall. So So that's in the budget. Water supply and distribution, those are our charges from the commission. We're anticipating based on $2.94 a cubic meter. So what we do is on your bills, we just put the direct cost from Henry Kruger as your consumption fee on your bill. So out of that $1 million, we're gonna collect on the revenue side, 800 of that is going directly to Henry Kruger. So, and we do, as I said before, we do have in our budget approximately $25,000 for water line repairs, those types of things. And that's a fluid number depending on the year and depending on how many breaks we may have. Knock on wood, 2021's been a good year, but you never know what's going to happen. And we do transfer to reserve $50,000 annually to try and get a little bit of a pot together to deal with some larger infrastructure projects. Sanitary sewers on the next page. We didn't get our video inspection program done. So we are wanting to do that, and we're going to bring the dollars forward that wasn't done in 21. Manhole repairs, we have a contract with Top Shot, and they come in every year, and they come in every second year, and they do $40,000 worth of repairs to our manholes, whether they're going down and relining them, putting new steps in, depending on what the situation is. They bill us, they do $40,000 worth of work. So in 21, they did $40,000 worth of work. We pay them for 20 of it, and we pay them for 20 in the next year to get them out here to do that. They would rather on the mobilization. So we've basically made that commitment already because they were in 21 and did $40,000 worth of work, so which we paid 20. So lift station, that's just general maintenance and upgrades to. We have a lift station at the main lift station. We have another lift station on 2nd Avenue. We call it the little brick station on 2nd Avenue. And we have a third lift station up behind the fire hall. We call the Igloo lift station. Those are the three that actively move all of our sewer. And the ATCO property to the west, there is a lift station set up there. If any development was going to go on there, it's already in place. Again, added to the operating reserve, $50,000. Garbage collection, that's our contract is $75,000 a year. Regional waste, as we discussed before, that's based on the requisition from Big Country Waste. FCSS, just wanted to pull out some of the major programs or services that we provide funding to. So we are a partner in the Family Resource Worker Program at the schools. So we contribute $7,000 there. We're a partner with the Ag Society and their Family and Marriage Therapy Program. We contribute $12,000. We contribute money to the Hanna Learning Center for their program guides and the programs they offer. We are partners with a Healthy Family Initiative that provides additional social services support to some of our most vulnerable families, one-on-ones. Canada Day, we budget out of FCSS and we allocate $15,000 basically to Canada Day and the events that day, which includes fireworks, the bounce house rental, the barbecues, anything that we do on it's right around that number. We have budgeted $3,000 for volunteer week activities, and the event coming up with Jody Carrington was originally designed as a volunteer week activity in 2020. So it's been postponed now till late in 21. And traditionally, Mr. Mayor, I'll look at you, we've had what we call the Mayor's Garden Party. So we have invited all of our seniors to the community center during Seniors Week and provided a luncheon for them on the town's dime. I know our previous mayor, that was one of his important things. He wanted to make sure it continued and upgraded a little bit in terms of the quality of the meal served and some entertainment. So that is in the budget as is right now, but certainly it's open for discussion as we move along.
We will discuss.
Okay.
Thanks, Fred.
Commercial office building, again, that's the business hub of what we do. We get $24,000 for revenue. We pay all of the expenses, and what we do at the end of the day, if there's 3,000 left over or 5,000 left over, we transfer that into reserve so we can pull that out to make landlord improvements to the building. Business and communication, the big one there is the $45,000. That is the contribution to Harvest Sky. So it's gone up $2,500 from 2021. So they're requesting $45,000 as our share in 2022. The rest is small stuff. The Palliser Economic Partnership, which we're a member at the bottom, our membership is $3,400 a year. Visitor Information Center, that $19,000 is basically the cost of operating the building with utilities, insurance, repairs, flowers, and our staff's time to cut the grass, run the irrigation systems, maintain all of that. So recreation, again, training and closer to pre-COVID levels. Special areas advance, transfer to capital reserve. So we, up until 2021, the $187,000 we got from special areas, they were taking $90,000, keeping $90,000 to themselves for a 10-year period because they had advanced the town $900,000 for Centennial Place. That was fully paid in 2020. So in 2021, council took the $90,000 additional dollars that we were actually receiving then and transferred it into a recreation reserve. So this plan still takes that $90,000 and transfers it into reserve. Swimming pool, that's our total cost of operating the facility, $228,000. Arena on the next page, our full cost of operating it for a full year. Park shop, the only real difference there other than general maintenance and stuff is they would like to do a LED light conversion in the building. Curling rink, that's our cost to operate the building. Fox Lake, that's our costs for a normal season, plus there's a transfer of $30,000 into reserves. Playground program, that's the cost to operate the EPIC program, and it's a little bit, doesn't reveal it quite well because we do get significant employment grants for that job, which is shown in the $37,000 under recreation. So it's not a net of $32,000 to run that program. There is still a cost, but we do, those positions are always, almost always approved by Canada Summer Jobs because they're excellent learning opportunities for teachers and social workers and stuff like that. So they always fund those employees that we hire in the summer. Irrigation at Hector King Hunter, we talked about that. Museum. So in the past 2 years, we've provided the museum with $7,000 operating grant, and we pay the power and gas at their buildings. So that we've been making a contribution in the neighborhood of $14,000 annually to the museum to help them keep sustainable and operating. Library, the $107,000 is total cost of operating the library. As you can see, the big chunk of that is the $67,400, which is basically a operating grant to the library board. There's also, as you see, when you get into the details, the town makes a contribution of $21,000 to the Marigold, and then the rest of the costs of that 107 is basically maintaining the building, insurance, heating, power, all of those things. Centennial Place, the 175 is total cost for the facility. A couple of items that are in that 175 I just wanted to bring forward is we've transferred $6,000 into reserve annually for fitness equipment, so replacement of equipment. We just replaced a couple of items here for $12,000, treadmills and stuff. And we had an association. I'm not sure if they're still in play. They were having a meeting last night to talk about whether they're going to continue as an association or disband, but we have provided the association with an honorarium of $2,500 for their service on the fitness center. So they would be the ones that would look at our fitness equipment and recommend purchasing new and what type to purchase and facilitate that. But they were meeting last night to see whether they wanted to continue as a group or not. So they may not be there. And there's $10,000 in there to do a mechanical system inspection and maintenance on our HVAC units. The funds we were planning to do that in 21 and we didn't, so we'd have the funds budgeted and bring them forward in 22. Community center, that's the cost to operate the community center. Caretaker contract has been reduced in this budget to 75%. This time we're at 50 right now, but we're anticipating we're going to build up through the year and be getting back into a normal year. So we've averaged 75. Lions Hall, that's our costs, but a big chunk of that would be, again, an LED lighting upgrade in there of $4,000.
Mr. Neal, just before you turn the page, just a couple
Yeah,
questions.
yeah.
So Communities in Bloom, is that no longer existent?
We have
Does
not had a program for 2 years, Council Bowden, I'm looking at.
Last
20,
year
when
for
we got
sure
into
we did.
COVID, we got into COVID. 21 for sure we didn't. And
2020 either.
I don't
think
believe it
COVID
was in
definitely,
2020 either.
So it is still an active
No, well-
organization, but not active.
Correct.
Okay.
And they might want to resurrect. It's one of those groups, and I know people would talk about Communities in Bloom and the cost of Communities in Bloom. Well, the cost of Communities in Bloom wasn't excessive. It was a few $1,000s. As you can see, I think we've done a good job in our community the last 2 years without Communities in Bloom. We always told people Communities in Bloom doesn't mean we're going to stop planting flowers and stop making our community look as attractive as we can. That committee, I valued that committee and I valued them. One of the things they did that I really valued, that I know they struggled with, that I thought we got a lot of mileage out, was the weekly awards, where they would have the signage made up and they would give signage to Councillor Kroll because he'd done a fantastic job on his yard, or to Councillor Murphy because her business looked clean and tidy and organized on the outside. But I think they were struggling with that a little bit because, like anything, they would choose some people as volunteers and people go, well, I don't think they should have got that. I think they should have got it.
I don't think there was ever once that we voted on.
No, it was
volunteers.
the two people who did
It
it,
was
and
2 individuals.
they got some feedback on it, and
Well, that's a casualty of the award is
yeah.
anytime you select somebody out of the community to be awarded something, well, somebody else is kind of ticked off because
Especially when it's subjective.
And I did get an email from Director Snell asking about a meeting in the new year, and I posed that question whether or not this is viable moving forward. If there is no interest, why carry forward?
I guess the
And-
committee would have to decide.
Yeah, there are some
Well, the
Long-
committee.
Committee of the.
Well,
long-term
that's what I mean.
volunteers, so.
Yeah.
And it was the committee that I did pose that question to ask, if there is interest in continuing on, fine, but, there needs to be some sort of feedback on that. And I don't know that, like well, for sure, then obviously we didn't do the federal awards thing like the last couple of years. And I'm not sure that there's a lot of flavor in doing that or appetite in doing that.
Mr. Neal, I only had one other, thank you.
Only one other
yes,
question? Okay.
There was mention earlier that the hub supplied computers to the public. Does the library also supply that? Is there computers in the library?
There
that
are
can
there
be
are
accessed
public
by the-
access computers in the library.
So we have two facilities that have computers that can be accessed by the public, and the hub and the library.
The hub, I'm not sure how the hub works,
They have
Councilor
a
Warwick.
space. I don't know if they have.
Nothing is free at
I think they have a,
You
s-
gotta pay.
Oh, I
gotta
thought
pay.
you said there was, you have to pay to use
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Oh, I
you
see,
pay. Yeah, no,
okay.
no, I didn't.
Oh,
say
I
anything
see,
about it,
okay.
But it is, yeah, they get
Oh,
people
I
come
didn't
in and they
understand
rent
that.
that space.
Okay.
the library does have a couple of dedicated public access space for community members who may not have access to the internet or
Does the
computer.
learning center still offer that as
The
well?
Learning center. does
Learning
as well,
center.
right?
A little bit, yeah.
But does the Marigold provide that service through the library?
Oh, yes,
So
absolutely.
the Marigold would be the one that would be paying that expense.
Well, I don't know if I don't know what that
Whether it's
expense
the
would be.
Yeah,
Marigold of the library,
That
that's a
might
good
be-
question.
That might be.
But it
part
is,
of
it
our-
is something,
Our payment to Marigold. I guess.
yeah, it is something, libraries are something that, 20 years ago when the internet was starting and things are building up, people would say libraries are coming to an end because people can get their books elsewhere, do whatever. Libraries have transformed themselves into public access space, public meeting space. And now, as you heard from the library director, there's still more books being accessed through the system. They just maybe don't come into our library and look through which ones they want to pick. They're picking them, they're getting dropped off. So, but yeah, so they do have public access space. And again, that was one of the questions I had. COVID, I had a very angry resident in who was upset they couldn't get into the library.
Many.
That was where they relied on the library to provide that service. And they were frustrated that the library was closed to the public, yet they could walk into the town office, yet they could walk into a restaurant, yet they could walk into this. But the library's got the short end of the deal with the province initially, and the province mandated that they be closed. So,
And don't they have a partnership with the school as well?
yeah,
As far
Yeah.
as, providing access for students that don't have.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor,
so
appreciate that.
I think that's through that. I got half an hour, Mr. Mayor. I want to just touch base on the capital items on the next page. So again, these are requests from our department heads for these things to keep moving forward and to do. Certainly, council will provide the direction on whether we move forward and fund them or not, whether it's this year, next year, etc. So with the fire department, they have a program of replacing bunker gear. They try and replace 4 sets annually. That's the cost. They have a program on their SCBA bottle replacements. That's the cost. They do, I think they try and do 10 bottles a year. They are entering into replacing their pager program. So 10 of 30 units. And they're looking to purchase mobile radio replacement for all of their trucks and even for some of the individual officers. And again, you see the large in there. So we have ordered the rescue truck. In 22, we expect to pay for the chassis portion of the cost. Those costs that you see for fire department are cost shared 50% with special areas. That is the total cost, but we get 50% of the funding from special areas.
For all those subject lines?
For just,
everything
I wish it was for all the subject lines, but
just
just for the
the-
fire department. No,
Okay.
for the fire department.
That's what I meant, yeah,
Yeah.
just that.
Like I was a volunteer fireman for 25 years. We used to purchase our own equipment, like we'd volunteer, or like the town would give us the money to buy something, to purchase something. But as a volunteer fireman, we always donated our money back to the town.
I think the fire department does a lot of fundraising to help cover some of their costs as well.
Yeah, I think they still do donate their.
They don't donate,
The
I'll bet they don't donate $1 of their wages.
Well, I beg to differ with them on that one, but because they have a fireman's group that they.
They have an
what do they call
association.
it?
They have an association.
Yeah, they have an association and they paid quite a bit of money toward that burn tower and things like that. They put money into it.
Yeah, the
I believe that's where
association,
it comes from.
the association has probably off the top of my head, the burn tower, where it's at today is probably in the range of 750,000, and they probably, as an association, paid for 400 of it. Again, they got a grant for part of it as an association, but they did do some fundraising and put it towards it. I do agree, Councilor Kroll, I don't know, I can't speak to that, but I don't think I can say that each and every firefighter takes their honorarium that receive on a yearly basis and donate it to the association, but I think they act as volunteers as a group. If they do a fundraising event, they participate and that money goes to the association. So that's the way the existing department operates. We do need to be cognizant that our fire department is critical to our municipal operations. And our fire department are, yes, they get compensated based on their calls and based on their training, but they are volunteers and they choose not to respond, they choose not to respond.
So when they do, like, when they work full-time and they do respond during work hours, do they take that time, that they have to take their holiday time? Or how does that work?
For town employees, they do.
Right.
For town employees, they'll use vacation time or bank time or whatever if they respond to a call. But for example, if I'm a mechanic at Hanna Chrysler and I have a call and I get up and leave, I'm not sure what arrangement that's between the employee and the employer.
I was gonna say it's, yeah, I know I used to have several guys working for me at Elk Point, and I just paid them. And
Yeah,
it's an individual choice. is what
Yes,
it is, a
yeah.
business choice.
it's a business choice, and whether the business wants to, be seen as a good corporate citizen and donate that, but they're not obligated to do that. So I don't know how those arrangements are with the private sector. That would be an arrangement between the employer and the employee. So fire department, I'll move on to public works then. Mr. Mayor, they have a budget for a new half-ton in here. I know we throw this in every year, and I think the last 2 years, council has deferred it. I think the last one we bought was in 2019, and we call it the office truck. It's the one that sits back here, and we shifted that one into the fleet. But I think we generally would like to buy one probably every 4 years if we could get into that rotation. But again, if council says, is the organization going to crash because we don't have a new half-ton? No, it's not. It's just trying to keep the fleet, relatively updated moving forward. So that is certainly something, like I said, previous council has removed that from the budget or deferred it from the budget, I know last year.
And that was on a 4-year cycle. So it's been,
Yeah, typically if we can have one every 4 years is probably.
and 2 years ago would have been
We
4
bought one
years
in
or
19.
19 was that one.
And I think before that was 15, so. We have, and we'll get you this information as we move forward. We have a listing of all of our vehicles, what year they were, what year they are, and how many, what the odometer says on them. The challenge we have with our vehicles, obviously, they don't get miles out. But we've got, I think we are still driving some that are 25 years old. So that's in here for you to contemplate. We have a new plow truck in the budget that's here for you to contemplate. Again, might be one that we can push off a year. I know I give Brent heck all the time. He has his equipment look good. He keeps it in good shape. They keep them clean. This is a 2-year truck that was bought in 2000. Again, won't have significant miles on it, but the challenge they're having with it is just the salted sand is rusting the frame and the chassis away. And I know there was some concerns this year as they were going through it. It has to be inspected annually, and they were worried that might be an issue with an inspection. It did pass, so it's good to operate the 22-year, no questions asked. But Whether it would be passed again this time next year,
How does that determine the ability to plow? You know, if
Well, if the
there's,
frame rods through it.
well, if it's a frame, but if it's something that is more
Cosmetic.
aesthetics, yeah,
Cosmetic,
then,
well.
but if it is
But
actual
because
structural.
of the size of the unit and what it's used
Yeah.
for, the regulations say it's a commercial vehicle, it needs to be inspected annually by an inspector. So we have a number of our tandems that go through that process annually and have to be inspected. And if an inspector says that vehicle is unsafe to operate,
It's done.
it's done, unless he says it's unsafe to operate. If you fix this and it's something you could fix, then you can, but if
But a
it's
frame
something
is
like the
something,
frame,
Structural,
so.
yeah.
And not only that, but like the years are against that stuff. If you ever go to get rid of it, it's worth absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, but like I said, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's used basically in the winter to plow snow off our perimeter roads. And it's also our sanding truck that will go out and sand. So it doesn't have a ton of miles on it, but, water distribution, this is, something that we've put off for a few years. Our system that we use that does our water reads, of course, it's technologically based. They've got new software, they've got new hardware. They're basically telling us if we don't update to the new software and the new hardware, ours is obsolete and can't be repaired and dealt with. So that's in there. Pool, couple things I didn't get a chance to really sit down with Glenn or Kevin. I know the pool heater, the Junior Olympic pool, we deferred from last year. We had our plumbing people look at it and basically look at the condition of it and gave us an estimate last year to say, no, I think you're good for the year. If the pool heater fails during the year, you're kind of SOL because it's hard to get one and replace it and move forward and with our supply chain issues. So that's one that I think we would need to move forward with for sure. The other three, I'm not sure where they're at and what their conditions are. They may be able to be deferred. The arena's a big one. The condenser is probably from about the 1980s era. And the condenser is the piece that you see outside the room that sits up high, and all of it's to cool the brine that comes off and it circulates through that. It is a different system than most.
Very different.
It's an air cooled system. A lot of the systems that are in place are water cooled, and I think they've gotten better. A lot of times in the old days with the water cools, if you had a water leak on the condenser, you quite often had ice forming all around it. It was a block of ice. Council of the day back then decided to go with an air cooled unit. It's worked relatively well for its time. We've had some repairs over the years, primarily welding repairs, and it's aluminum and it's a high pressure vessel and all of those things. So not everybody can just pop in and do it. We had an issue this summer. Of course, the plant gets shut off at the end of March and it's not pressurized, nothing happens. We had our ice technician out to service the plant and do an overhaul on it here in August, September. When he went to look at it, all the ammonia was gone. So the ammonia had leaked out of the system. It's not under pressure, so very slow. Nobody noticed it, nobody smelt it, went up and gone. So they had to find the leak and find some specific welders who could come in and do it. But it was a challenge doing it because they don't have a lot of the certification numbers that they're supposed to have when the welder is talking to the boilers branch to say, I'm working on this vessel. And then when you talk to the installers who are from Vancouver, they said, well, we didn't give those units numbers back at that time. So they did get it done and got it fixed, and knock on wood, it's been running fine. I can't sit here and tell you that it won't run fine for another season. The challenge you get when you deal with it is if you have a leak mid-season, you may be shut down for a while.
Does this also feed the curling rink?
It does, yeah. The plant services both sides.
And would it run more economically with a new unit?
I can't answer, Councilor Bowen. I don't know if you're gonna save any power or save anything, or whether it's gonna push the brine through the lines faster, cool it faster. That I don't know. I would think it probably would, just based on age and technology,
Yeah.
but I can't tell you that for a fact, so,
And could replacement be done in stages?
no.
Mhm.
So the other thing with this is the condenser itself is probably, a standalone is probably $100,000. But I know if talking to the ice technician, they want to do some replumbing and stuff because it's not plumbed very well from the original. That's an add-on from the original that was built. So, so there's some work there. We budgeted 150. The ideal thing would be, and timing is against us, the ideal thing would be to have potentially Hanna Minor Hockey or the Hanna Curling Club, who have not-for-profit status, apply to the province for a granted 50%.
Like we do with the Zamboni.
Like we did with Zamboni, and we've done on a few projects. The challenge with that is the CFEP program is so inundated and it's so far behind that you're probably not gonna be able to do it in a 2022 calendar year. So you'd be rolling the dice a bit to stretch it to 23 and do it, but you could, the option there then is you may be eligible to get 50% of that money back.
With the water cool, though, you do not have to have it housed.
I believe so, and I think that's part of it.
Okay, no, I just,
I believe that's part of it, Mr. Mayor. It now is so there'd have to be some sort of framing or some sort of structure over it, so.
Could the existing, that little building, could that still be utilized?
The building will still be utilized, yeah, that won't
little-
change anything.
So it could be stored
Yeah,
in there?
but no, there's no room in there.
Oh, okay, I'm
the
assuming that
condenser is
whatever.
outside right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
The
I'm
condenser is
assuming
the condenser is the piece you see outside.
Okay, I was
Stilts.
assuming that it was outside in that building,
No,
sorry.
no, so
I'm also curious about, because that's the thing that makes all that sound. It's very loud.
yeah, that's the thing that makes the noise
I
outside.
was always curious when I went by it, when they were just, because I had to do the decals on the Olympia.
Yeah.
And I thought, the people across the street, that must, maybe you drown it out over decades, but that would drive me crazy. So hopefully a replacement would be quieter for the sake of the neighborhood.
Yeah, possibly. I know Jim Holman's a good friend of mine, and Jim lives right across the street, so
It's just,
he's fine. It's because it's pretty consistent. So I think, as you said, in the
it's not
winter,
kicking in and kicking out.
in the
all
winter,
time.
you got your doors closed and windows closed, so
Yeah.
don't tell me you can't hear it. You can hear it, but because of the monotonous, same level noise, I think they just become used to it.
Yeah.
But I know I
Walk
can
them
walk
in.
out, I can walk out of my house on 7th and I can hear it.
Yep.
But in the summer, it's.
In the
not
summer,
running,
it's
so
not,
It's
no.
not a problem.
Yeah,
The
so-
windows are open.
So that's in this budget. Our Olympia room, we're trying to figure out a better way to deal with the snow and the stuff that's in there. We do have a melting pit in there, but it's not working very well, so we're using a lot of hot water to melt the snow out of the Zamboni, so the guys would like to see something done there. And with our header, they've got some dollars in for there with the brine goes through. They noticed this year when they were making ice, that there's a spot in one corner that wasn't freezing as well as it should. So whether there's some blockage in that line or reduced function of that line. And the curling rink, the west interior wall repair, if you go into the men's washroom, you'll see a gap at the top where the building has shifted over the years. So just to try and clean that up and clear that up. We have, as council may be aware, that building has a interesting history from when it was built. And there was lots of monitoring of wall movements and stuff for the first 10 or 15, 20 years. And it kind of settled down and there was no movement. So but it has a history for those of you who were here when it was built. Fox Lake Park, we have some money set aside from this year. We'd like to look at upgrading the electrical system there. We have the new area down below where the ball diamonds used to be on the south side is all 30 amp. That's the biggest we have is 30 amp. We have lots of the original that is 15 amp. And so trying to upgrade the 15 amp, the 20 amp, and even the 30 amp. Nowadays, when people come in with their big units, if we don't have 50 amp, they're not happy. And I know this year we had some challenges with our electrical system when we were full in the summer, when it was 35 degrees out and everybody was running their air conditioners. They were flipping breakers and not happy that they couldn't run their air conditioning. So I don't have one of those big units. I'm not used to it, but that's the feedback we're getting from people is that if we upgrade, we should upgrade to at least 50 amp so they can run everything.
Do we have the infrastructure out there to do it?
I think for the most part we do. Some of the stuff, the older stuff that's in the 15 amp, maybe not, but the 30 amp to 50 is probably fairly doable, and the 20 might be doable, but and the 15 maybe to 30, but
No, I just,
yeah, it's never, you never would have thought of that when you put it in. Like I know the 15 amp ones were probably put in 30 years ago. 15 amp, that's lots. 15 amp.
Yeah.
about 34 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
We were on our honeymoon when they were
Oh.
putting it
Oh,
in.
were you? And it was Mr. Portna?
I don't recall. I didn't, we were on our honeymoon.
He was
Oh, you weren't paying attention? So it was fate, Mr. Mayor, that you end up moving to Hanna?
Yeah, it is. It's kind of funny. Maria and I look back and yeah, this was our first stop on our honeymoon.
That's awesome. Is this pricing for like what level of upgrade? Everything to 50 amp?
As much as we can,
Okay, this is just.
as much as we can get done for that, for those dollars.
And some in each area.
If we can, yeah. Parks, we have a request for a mower in. We council deferred that last year. We try to, again, every 3 years, try to replace one of our units. Again, similar to a half ton, is the world gonna come to an end and we not be able to cut the grass if we did buy a mower this year? No, we just had them all maintained and they're all just recently through John Deere, through service to get overhauled and fix anything they could find that was a problem. And we'll bring you some of those in next week. We'll bring you some of the hours that they have on them so that you can look at what the hours they have on them. They are our most heavily used piece of equipment for our parks group.
I know the golf course went through a challenge as far as replacing equipment. There is none to buy.
And that might be the supply chain issue we find ourselves in, Mr. Mayor. So that's there. Again, we talked about this before. $50,000 we've got in reserve to pull forward for walking paths, trail expansion. That may be something that we defer to future years if the trail plan isn't ready or we're not ready to move forward with it. But at the end of the day, that doesn't necessarily save your tax dollars request or your problem you have, because that money's in a budget already to bring forward. So the other one that I'm struggling with and I need some more information on, and so this is a preliminary number, is our tennis court resurfacing. So we budgeted 75,000 in 21, and we had trouble finding anybody who is in that business who wanted to come out here and look at doing that. And I think they've got a recent price to redo it from scratch was 150, which is crazy.
Okay, there's a group that comes out, Hanna Motor Products is required by GM Canada to resurface or whatever it is, blacken their lot.
Yeah.
Is that something that we maybe should
Well, it's a little bit of a different product, Mr. Mayor, like than that, because if you've looked at our tennis courts, they're not just the asphalt base, like they're an asphalt base, but then they have the
It's almost a
rubberized,
rubbery.
rubberized.
Okay.
Yeah.
I won't lie to you, I've never been on the tennis, I've driven
Okay.
by it lots of times, I've never
Okay.
been on it.
So this price I'm still not happy with, and I need to do some more work on this. And partly I look at it, I know Counselor Olson lives close to the tennis courts. I go by and they're not full every night. There are people who do play tennis and it's part of our live the lifestyle. But, we have to look at that cost. It is ours and it is our facility. My concern with it right now is there are cracks in it. The asphalt has cracks, so there are some cracks in the surface. And
That's the towering poplar tree.
so I don't want, first thing we don't want is to have any liability issues with it as a result of the cracks in there. And our guys have gone and sprayed the weeds that grow up through it and tried to keep them clean. But again, once you've got the crack that's formed, the water goes in and that's where it causes a problem again. So I'm not sold on that number. I need some more work on that number yet, but that's in there. And Gwen has put in some money and I don't know what they look like, what the upgrades are or what they would be, but we have had comments from some of our skate park users that they'd like an upgrade. They'd like different things there. They'd like to see it different. And those pieces of equipment that are there have probably been there for 15, 20 years. So I don't know if it's just a variety of equipment or just wear and tear and something.
My
different.
granddaughter has informed me that we need to do some surface work.
Okay,
It is very well used, sorry.
No, sorry. There's also a piece of equipment that was damaged that the town has that never was reinstalled.
okay. Okay, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've brought it up in the
Okay.
past or something,
Okay.
and Gwen will know about it. And I'm also wondering, is some of this parks, like green space, walking trail expansion and that sort of thing, will some of that be covered under the beautification? Like grants and all that sort of thing that's being,
Possibly with Mark's group, potentially, not through the money they have now, but working with the feds on their Canada Community Revitalization Fund. That might be an option, but I'll be honest with you, Counselor Bowden, if we're gonna get money through that program, they're gonna expect that we're contributing, matching to a certain degree, so that money, if we do get some, that money might have to go towards that, but in a perfect world, we'll get more.
yeah.
More
yeah,
for our dollars.
Yeah, so you could get 100,000 for it.
Right.
And Centennial Place, just fitness center flooring. I haven't been in there. I guess you can tell I haven't been in there to see what
We weren't
condition the
gonna
floor is
mention
in. So whether, again, that's something, we try and put it on the table so it's there, so it doesn't get forgotten versus coming up. So whether that can be deferred by a year, that's probably certainly an option. So
Was that replaced before? Did they do work
I
on
think,
that?
I think the
before?
flooring is original,
So
so
10
10,
years.
11 years from when it was, the dance group
The
has
dance
replaced
group
their
has
flooring. but- So, Mr. Mayor, what I want to do now, it's 12 o'clock, I respect your time. What I would expect you to do is you have the detail on everything in your binder. Go through it. It'll show you what was budgeted in that same category in 21. It will show you what the actual is, and in some of the situations, we've tried to, not all, but we've tried to project what the year in 21 would be, especially with utility bills and stuff like that. We can look and make a projection for the end of the year. And then it's got a 22 budget, a 23, and a 24 for each category. So read through them, and we'll pick up again next Wednesday afternoon. And if you have any questions on it, we can go through the detail to kick it off. If you have any questions, we can deal with them right away and move forward. If you have any questions in the meantime that you are uncomfortable bringing up in public or want to just ask me on the side, don't hesitate to come in with your budget document, with your questions and say, Kim, why does this say, well, how come this amount is in here when the amount here was different or whatever, or what does this represent? So don't hesitate to come in or bring those questions forward and everybody hears the discussion and the answers, so.
So before our next budget meeting,
Yeah.
you're going to supply us with the hours and miles and
I'll
years.
Probably, whether we do or whether we bring it to you that day,
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, like, again, we still have the following one on the eighth,
Yeah.
so. We don't expect, generally, I don't expect on the next meeting on the first that we're gonna make a bunch of decisions. I think the more the decisions will be done on the eighth and discussion on the eighth. But the first would be opportunity for you to have gone through there and ask me the questions that don't make sense to you, or what does this represent, and go from there. So, but we'll try and bring the mileage for our vehicles and the hours for our equipments to you for the next meeting.
So just to confirm, the time at our next meeting is at 1 o'clock.
Yes.
Is there any chance we can change that at all? Bump it up an hour or so?
When you say bump it up, you mean start at noon or start at
Start
2?
earlier. I know we had a motion to start it at 1.
But there's a conflict with another meeting. Or there's a conflict regardless, whatever it is, none of my business.
I'm not concerned about the conflict. I have a medical appointment that I have scheduled for that afternoon and I cannot change it. So
Yeah.
I'm just wondering,
there's-
like, I can't, I'm at 2 o'clock, I have to leave,
I'm
so
okay. I'm
I'm
okay with
not
this
gonna
change.
be able to,
And
I'm gonna
you're,
miss
so from
some.
2, you're,
I'll be back here in about 40, well, it depends
Okay.
how long it's gonna take.
so you'd be
So-
absent for,
I'll
40
say
you're
an
gonna be
hour,
absent for a
yes.
portion of it here regardless.
Yes, that is correct.
well, yeah, you're regardless you would, whether we started at 12. Like my
Well, if we
assumption,
started early-
my assumption, Mr. Mayor, is that we're gonna start at 1. Prior to this
Ish.
conversation, we'd start at 1 and we would go to 4:30 or 5,
That's
whatever.
kind of what I anticipated.
Whatever anybody's comfortable with. If you want to start at noon, we're open to that. If you want to, but even if we start at
I know,
noon,
I
you're gonna
realize
miss a portion.
You're still gonna miss.
Unless you start at 8:30.
I just don't know what portion we're gonna miss.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I hear you, girl.
it's just too many.
So we're good with whatever.
I'm flexible.
So that's fine.
The only trouble you run into, Mr. Rand, I'll say it for those of you who have to get some sustenance in your body. Sometimes if you start at noon
Some hangry
You
budget.
don't, yeah.
and work through to 5, you don't get to eat, and sometimes that affects
What are you
people.
looking at me?
I'm looking at everybody.
Can we not have it like a lunch meeting? Like
Well, we
bring your
could.
lunch with you or
We
something?
could, that's an option. I just wanted to make sure people were aware of that.
And I have a question. I know the directors were asked about what their wants are. Have the directors been asked about what cost savings they may come up with as far as to help with budgets? Like, are there things that they could do less with that might help with budget?
I don't think there's anything in here. My opinion, Councilor Bowen, is I don't think there's anything out there that is.
It's a Christmas wish list.
No,
that is, but
know,
there's
but-
nothing out there that we could say, okay, we don't need a street sweeper, or we don't need to do this. Like, if council wants to change the level of service that we provide, that's a different option, but
Or
to
does,
provide the same level of service, this is what we have.
or does Fielding Place need to be swept?
We don't, well,
It
we
was, yeah.
we swept it because we're out in the area and because we have a lot of people using it for parking, so.
It's just a
But yeah.
question that, if they're asking for
Yeah.
things, well, maybe there's things that they could bring forward that
Kate,
could do things better.
would you like to put a motion down for a noon meeting?
Or to change the time.
Or
Change the time to
change the
noon.
date or.
Yeah.
Councilor
well-
Warwick, sorry. My bad.
Well, you know what, honestly, anytime earlier, I would be in favor of. I mean, I'd like to work with the council that's here to see if there's some times at work. I mean, I could be here at 8, 9, 10, 11. I just, after a learning session, I don't want to be in contravention of coming to the table to make the motion and saying, I'm gonna declare that I don't know, I'm not in a position to, you know what, vote in favor or against a motion because I don't have the full gamut of information before me. It has not, I have not.
This
seen
is a
meeting.
little bit of a different situation.
Okay, so matter if I
Council,
miss an hour.
you're not, you wouldn't be,
We're not voting or,
we're not voting on it, and you wouldn't be refrained from voting on it at the next meeting because you missed an hour of discussion. There is certain situations on with that more refrains to public hearings and land use bylaw stuff that if you're not part of the public hearing, then you can't vote on the issue when it comes to council. So, but here you're, like, I'll use an example. Last year, the mayor wasn't able to attend the first meeting. So it's not unusual.
so I'm seeing a trend here.
Well, medical appointments, different.
So would you like to move it up to noon? I mean, I have no problem bringing a bag lunch, not that I will bring one, but I have no problem moving it up to noon. That's,
It should be, yeah,
that's,
depending on what everybody.
I mean,
Make
the
a
only
motion
other
to
thing
move it
is I would just, whatever I miss in that time that I'm gone, I guess I'll just have to spend some time
Well, it'll be recorded.
and, or I could do
The
that.
discussion will be recorded, so on YouTube, so you can watch
is
the.
there any benefit to us to have another hour?
I don't think so, Mr. Mayor. I find that once you've been here and sitting here and talking about it for 4 or 5 hours. it
No,
gets-
I'm just,
I
'cause we're
think-
running
I
out
think
of time
well,
all the time.
I
and-
think if we need to, following the 8th,
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor, like if we met on the 8th and council still wanted more information or needed more time, then we would schedule another meeting on the 9th or 10th,
Okay.
or we would extend that meeting.
okay,
We're
So-
gonna need more than just that one meeting to cut $500,000 of that budget.
Well, and the other thing I'll bring to you, Mr. Mayor, for the next meeting is I'll bring some options or ideas in terms of what I would think, how we could deal with that $500,000 to the table. So at least there's a starting point and
an educated opinion.
well, no, I don't want to say that. A starting point as to some options as to how we can fund some of these using different reserves or whether we can defer or whatever. Like I told Rhonda yesterday, I said, if I was the king and I was the only one to do this and I had to find $500,000, I could do it. I'm sure every single one of you could.
There'd be a different $500,000.
It might look differently, and my $500,000 might look differently than your
That's what
$500,000,
I'm saying.
but I can bring some ideas on the table. I know it seems like a daunting number, but it's not terrible when you look at some of the larger capital we have and some of the larger repairs we want to do, so.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When we're talking about the fire department, that the volunteer firefighters have to take paid leave from their job for the town to do an emergency. Is that standard protocol in most towns? Because I'm shocked by that. I'm shocked by that.
I don't,
They get compensated
They
through
get
the
paid
fire.
through the fire.
No, I know.
I don't know, Councilor Murphy, I don't know if it would be standard protocol. A lot of larger places don't have volunteers, and
True.
I struggle with the word volunteer
I'm with you.
because they're not volunteers in the sense that they're not getting compensated. They are getting compensated. A lot of places have changed to having them called as on-call paid, different type of thing, but I don't know where it's at in others. I couldn't tell you, and I know out in this area, we could check. I don't know out in this area if you went to Drumheller and said, you know,
What's your,
if they, and again, it's unique that they are employed by the town.
Absolutely.
That's another subset, right? And we're fortunate in the fact that right now, I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of our public works employees are volunteer or are firefighters, and one of our recreation crew is a firefighter. So we have 5 staff that are And Adrian used to be, Adrian's retired from the fire department, so we had 6 at one time.
So almost in essence, they're double dipping.
The amount they make is.
Oh, no, I'm not arguing.
Yeah, that was just so they could be covered through workers' compensation.
Yeah.
They had to give them a salary.
And the risk level too. Yeah.
The risk level, of course, we want to make sure we.
So
encourage
that
people.
again would be a from council, if council wish to make that decision that our volunteer or our staff who are firefighters don't
Work
lose
for the town,
time,
right.
don't lose time to respond to an emergency and collect their pay, that's a decision council can make and we can move forward that way. But
And the reason why I brought that up is because I had, when we did the Remembrance Day ceremony, I attended, John Ackerman's approached me and said, on behalf of the Legion, we think it's terrible that Paul, the Sergeant at Arms, has to take time off of work for the town to represent. I mean, the amount of people there was so cold and it was just hundreds of people show up. But he is apparently, again, I don't know for sure, takes leave from work to attend as Sergeant at Arms for Remembrance Day ceremonies every year. So he would like the town to not do that.
so the only comment, Councilor Murphy, in regards to that is our staff have the opportunity to earn time off. So he probably has earned that time off and yes, he wasn't there, but he had bank time that would compensate for that. So it's not like he's out the hour or 2 hours there. But we have to be careful, Councilor Murphy.
Yes.
I totally respect the Legion. I respect that whole process. But then you might have other staff who say, well, I'm representing this group at this event and it's a good group. Do I get paid, or do I have to take time off to do that?
I
So,
coach a hockey team.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, so it one-on-one, one-offs, simple, easy answer, but when you look at the big picture, it gets a little more complicated,
So
so.
where do you draw the line?
Yeah,
I just have to respond to him and I'm just not
Yeah.
sure how to do that
Yeah.
because I'm.
well,
I'm
Sandra
sorry,
and I were at,
I was approached too, and I'm sorry, I did forget about that.
But I don't have any, I don't
think
have any
did
issue.
mention Something
Was he
about.
representing the
privilege
town
you
of Hanna?
No, he's not.
So he wasn't representing the town of Hanna. Volunteer.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I attended as well, the school, Fred and I attended the school function as well, but that's our choice. And, I'm not expecting any whatever from my time, whatever. It's just something that you want to do, but yeah, I know I.
He
appreciate
asked
that.
on just. as
so
a
I just want to
gesture.
clarify that it was Mr. Ackerman's that asked.
Correct.
yeah, that's-
Just for
Paul
clarity,
is
then,
not
isn't
aware.
the Remembrance Day, they're not, that's a paid
That's a holiday.
holiday. It's a stat holiday, is it not?
It's
Is
a
that-
convoluted.
Yeah, it is a staff
Yeah.
holiday.
So
It is a
they
staff
were,
some
holiday.
provinces.
any of the
The one
staff
that
would have
he
not been at work that day, but it's
None
a
of our
paid, it's a
staff,
paid staff
Except their
holiday, right?
arena
that
was
a high
working that
school
day.
one.
Okay.
So
Like the
they would have
school
got
event.
paid.
Yeah, we're still live.
Yeah.
But
I
I do-
just
but I
want
do-
clarity whether it is a staff holiday.
I think we have to be careful in terms of how we're looking at it. So I think that Mr. Ackerman's request had more to do with the school
Yeah.
function, which was on a Friday,
Yeah.
that Mr. Davies would have then taken 2 hours off work or whatever he took off to represent the Legion at that event versus the November 11th day, which he was on vacation, not working and getting.
I think it was,
Correct.
yeah.
So-
I think it
Okay.
was, yeah,
Thank you.
sorry.
I totally missed that part. You're right.
Okay, no, thank you. I'm sorry you had to listen to
Oh, no.
me for the last
It was
3
very
hours,
good.
but
Yeah, it was
Very
good.
good job.
That was
I do
awesome.
think this is the best learning opportunity
Oh, yeah.
for you as a council when you get into this stuff to learn what the town does, where they work, where the money goes, and how much things cost. So I think it's a great opportunity, and I look forward to your opinions and ideas and discussions as we move forward the next couple meetings. So
Any other questions? If not, adjournment.
Soon as you adjourn, so you've adjourned?
I adjourn.
Okay.
I'll give you some more.